Oh, we're recording. All right, perfect. Welcome back
Sweet.
to another episode of Panther, a folding table talk. This is episode 55
Five? Yeah.
and
Hey.
55.
Yeah.
Yep,
Nice. Hey.
yep. We're 55. We're mid 50s now, and this is a topic that me and Mac are probably gonna like not get because this is
We're gonna
airsoft
be
teching.
honest. Be honest. We're gonna sit here and we're gonna nod and we're gonna agree. Do you concur?
I
Do you
indubitably,
concur?
indubitably. All right, so we have our guests here that is going to be talking. I will let Tack take over because this is his show. Tack, go ahead with your tack talk.
Okay, guys. Hey, it's Tack here with the Panther Folding Table Talk. Okay,
Why
so
did you?
it's gonna
Why?
be it's gonna be
Why?
episode
Oh my!
55, and today we're gonna be talking about Tekken. Right? We're gonna be doing a good old fashioned TTT. You know, Tack's tech table talk.
We're gonna work on that.
Anyways, so this last week we did a little bit of a field report trying to get a little bit of the sentiment from the community on what happens if your gun breaks and what you do. So after doing a field report at Panther, kind of get the general feel, we pretty much concluded that the general chunk of Panther's community are what I call DIYT, you know, your do-it-yourself kind of tech. But it's also kind of split down the middle, as I was saying, just because there are also quite a few people who will go and take things to a tech. From this notion, it's very comparable to how people treat their cars. As that community, there are people who will work, you know, and fix everything themselves, as well as people who will, over just the slightest noise, will take it to a mechanic to get something fixed. The argument is always over convenience and time. As to each individual, it'll be different. Some will argue that it is more convenient to fix a gun themselves, but to those who are up to that argument, they usually sacrifice their time to do so. Well, it's the complete opposite for someone else who just wants to, you know, who doesn't have any time at all and just wants something very convenient. So they'll drop it off to someone else to get it fixed or take it to a store. So with that, we're just going to be going over a couple pointers with this podcast here. So we're going to be going over what do you do if your gun breaks, resources for general tech knowledge, what equipment do you need to start DIY team for yourself, what makes someone a tech, any stories with teching that anyone has to share, as well as our future sort of the future of teching, or what our sort of what we kind of have an idea of what's going on in the future. So with that said, we're going to start off with our first topic there, which is what do you do if your gun breaks?
You should introduce your guest first before you continue on.
Yeah,
Oh
I know.
yeah.
I know you've had everyone here, but like, yeah, come on, man.
Okay, well, okay. Sorry, guys. We're just gonna go back and introduce our guests here. We got well, we'll ignore Poi and Mac. They're not gonna
Why?
be here,
What? I'm
so that's okay.
important.
But we got Schoolboy. We got Julian, and we got Julian. So
Hello.
okay, this is not, this is already going confused. Okay, and then we have our we have Raven. So all our guests have been on our episodes previously, but all of these guys have a very general tech background, as well as you know, experiences that of them they themselves are able to share, so that they you guys can get sort of an insight on what kind of goes on. So with that said, we're gonna go right back into what I was saying with the whole topic of what do you do if your gun breaks. So guys, open-ended question, so anyone can sort of answer this first. But what do you guys do? I myself, I'll fix it myself, just because that's what I like doing. It's kind of, you know, I'm sure some of you guys might be like that. Let's start off with okay, I want to say Julian, but if I say Julian, you're both gonna answer. So we're gonna go with Julian. Riot. I'm just gonna call you by your
Riot.
call sign. We're gonna go
Okay.
with that. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So Julian, I'll start
I'm in the
with
limelight.
you.
Okay,
Oh, great.
Chad, I think I want to get one thing out of your way here, just because I'm just gonna. I hate to like punch a hole in plot. Okay,
I
but
know you always do that.
every single one of the people that you have right now, Tack, okay, is going to answer you that they're going to fix. You're all techs. You're all techs. If any of you guys take your gun to someone else, I'm actually gonna probably laugh. But that's another point. Okay, so just yeah, let's go. Okay, you guys are all gonna fix guns. Tell people how to fix their guns. People want to know how to fix their guns.
Fix
Tech
guns.
Talks with Tack. If he comes down and punches me in the face, you guys know what happened.
This is gonna cut away to you going on the ground.
But
Oh,
yeah, so Julian,
Oh, he's
what would you
Um,
what would you do if your gun breaks? Are you gonna fix it yourself, take
if
it to a
my-
local shop? Do you got like another reputable
You know-
local tech that you would take it to, or are you gonna do some sort of like warranty or manufacturer? Like, what is the process that you're gonna go?
well, okay, so it really depends.
Right.
Oh.
Julian.
Which one? Make up your damn mind. I will
We're-
drive to your house.
Okay, so we're gonna start off with Julian Lau.
Huh? We just changed again.
Yeah.
Go cry.
Okay. What's the question again?
Oh god. Pretty much, what would you
Great
do
start.
if your gun breaks?
Oh, okay. What do I do if my gun breaks? For me, because as you guys know, I've been working on guns for a while. I'll just work on the gun myself. But if it's a gun I'm not familiar with, then YouTube, obviously, as we had mentioned before, would be the resource that just like everyone use, just to make sure that as you're disassembling a gun, you make sure you're disassembling the right pieces and hopefully not misplacing the pieces as you go through it. And then worst case, if not able to figure out, then I'll find a fellow tech. So like Dave, I know Dave for a good almost 2 decades, give or take. So I will bounce with him for some ideas and suggestions. He's come across it. And if he asks, what he would do, and we'll bounce off each other for ideas on how we could tackle it.
Okay, well that's very good actually. Sort of similar to that kind of sentiment as well. If I can't figure out something, or if there's specifically like the machine gun platform, for example, I'll definitely be talking to Schoolboy as well, kind of picking his idea off, just because that's his sort of creme de la creme for his platform there. So with that said, Schoolboy, do you want to give us a little bit of what you would do? Obviously, we kind of have an idea of what you're gonna say, but just go through the steps, gun breaks on you.
So I usually start with trying to diagnose it by essentially I do things by feel more or less before I actually rip into anything. So depending on what sound it made or what's going on with it, I usually try to think it through what it could possibly be. And then I'll either go to YouTube, basically if it's something I'm not familiar with, which I think is very rare these days, and look for disassembly videos, or the ones that I kind of pertain to more nowadays is actually the exploded manuals. They don't really come with guns anymore like they used to. So I usually go online and then Google them, bring them up, and then I essentially just sit down and figure out how to take it apart, and then start the repair process. And then it usually starts from like getting down to the gearbox, looking over all the internal parts, and then eventually opening the box and seeing what's going on either inside the box or if it's something else. So, and ironically, I like having a caliper at hand. That's it's a very handy tool that I've actually used quite a bit lately.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then
Okay,
I bounce
good to know.
ideas off of friends and other people as well, whether they be local or buddies back east or someplace else, basically, especially if I can't figure something out. I just try to connect with others to see if they've had similar issues.
Okay, all right. Right.
Okay.
What?
Sure.
Yes, I'm 100% sure.
Okay.
So what would you do if
Uh,
your gun breaks? Take us through the steps.
Okay. For me personally, because of my history of shotguns, was to do it online. So when my Waitoki Murray gas shotgun broke, I automatically looked for the forums to see what you could do to fix it, and everything was like, you can't. So you just gotta HPA tap it, and I was like, I guess I'm HPA tapping the shotgun. And so I use these really old forums, kind of like what you talked about doing way back in one of the episodes. Um, it also really depends on if it's a really new gun. If it's a really new gun, probably use a warranty for me personally. But if it's a gun that I bought off someone, probably you, Tack. I'll probably be like, hey, Tack, you want to help me take a look at this so I don't like destroy it further? Because
That's definitely a smart
Happened
idea.
before.
Yeah, I've seen
yes,
that happen a couple times with some people.
like I'll definitely try taking apart a gun, but like only if I have like 6 hours of like free time.
Okay, well, there you go. So that feeds right into what I was saying about convenience and time. Definitely, those are fighting on a scale there. Okay, Raven, how about
Hi.
yourself? What would you do? Take us through the steps if one of your guns broke.
So if one of my guns broke, obviously, like what everybody else said, is that they would fix it themselves. So yeah, I fix it by myself. Usually, the process that I go through is I check all the externals, even though maybe something's stuck somewhere. Then I slowly take it apart. I listen to the gearbox to make sure that and to check if there's any weird noises coming out of it. And so, like what everybody does is they try and figure out which areas look faulty and then break it down from there. So, if, for example, like uh, the other guys were saying, if they don't know what to fix on a certain gun, then usually YouTube is such a really good important place to go to if you don't know. So you won't have the chance to like destroy your parts and all that stuff, because it's better to see other guys disassemble a certain gun that you're trying to take apart than go at it and then all of a sudden poof, you have a broken gun. Also, I go to forums and like manuals also. Manuals are very important because then I could track what parts are there and if any parts are missing also. And also having the right tools and like places to put the parts, because parts do go missing. So I like to keep organized. Organization is a very key point because things go missing. And when things goes missing, then that's when problems start occurring. So
Definitely.
I like keeping organized, and like I always have like I have like this magnetic uh little tub here to keep all the screws and everything in. So screws don't go missing, because that's not good. Because like I saw on Schoolboy's post one time that screws will go missing and then you start replacing them. Yeah, that's a no-go.
Yeah, especially
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
how annoying some of the sizing are
Exactly.
with their stuff. Like they'll have 4 or 5 different thread pitches,
Exactly, yeah.
different lengths. It gets so annoying.
Because at that point, if screws are missing, then like I'd probably have to buy a screw kit, like a version 2 screw kit or a version 3.
Mhm.
And then that just
Mhm.
adds more onto the price of like the total amount that I'm putting into fixing my gun or either somebody else's gun. So organization is very important.
This is why you guys hate
Okay.
proprietary gearboxes and
Yes.
stuff.
Oh God, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's definitely annoying to see when someone tries to reinvent the wheel, but they try to do it in a different way, and now you need completely different set of tools to deal with that. I know that all of you guys can sort of agree with that feeling there. Boy and Mac, I'm gonna throw you guys in together on this. I can't just leave you guys out in the corner there. What would you guys do if your gun breaks? Do you guys have similar steps to the other guys here, or do you guys just throw up your arms and you see check engine light and just
Yeah,
go find
no,
attack?
you hit it
Well,
right in the
okay.
nail
Okay,
because
well, no, boy, be honest, right? Because I think it really depends on like the platform, and obviously it depends on what you're interested in and what you look into.
if
Because
it's gas,
tack,
yeah.
tack's not fixing my pistol. I'm okay with that, right? But when it comes to like an AG or like, if I can't figure it out first, because I'm quite prideful, but like I try my best, but other than that, like, yeah, I definitely try and at least troubleshoot the problem before I bring it to him. Because I mean, he's just gonna give me like a bad face no matter what, right? It's just like,
Yes,
So, like,
mostly
you know,
disappointed.
like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
he's
do
not,
like
he's not angry. He's disappointed.
Julian Lau has something in his shop which has a step-by-step process of before you take it into attack, you follow these steps. I love that, by the way, because it's beautiful steps of how to like triage and then troubleshoot your issues before you take it to an expensive tech, right? You
Mm.
know, for regular Joes like me and Mac, right? We're not willing to open a gearbox or open up a shell or even as simple as changing like the hop up buckets and stuff. You know, it's just one of those things where I will take it to a shop, yes, and
Like, basic maintenance isn't an issue, right? Like, that's what
yeah,
I'm saying. Like, I mean, like, you know,
yeah, I
but
know how to
if
clean
it's
a
like,
barrel, yeah.
yeah, like tack was there when I first opened the gearbox, and um,
Never
yeah,
again.
it was not it was not a good time. It was not a good time. Like,
oh God, there's stuff everywhere.
it was literally like
Mac's first
Yeah.
gearbox opening.
it was the epitome, guys, of like tax trying to warn me, like, hey guys, you know, like, make sure you put like pressure on that spring to like make sure it like doesn't just like go everywhere. And he was just about 2 seconds too late, and it was just all like, what? Boom! And it was just like, can you help me put this back
Yeah.
together?
Yeah, no,
Everybody's got to have their first gearbox pop, okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah,
that's your
a-
welcoming
yeah.
to
Yeah,
the
Ever had a
teching
desk?
world.
You
You ever
know,
had a
welcome.
desk pop? Huh?
yeah, you know what they should
Yeah.
do? They should just have something that's like a completely plastic V2 gearbox that you give out, and it's like $50, and the whole purpose of it is just to pop Goes the
Learn,
Weasel
yeah.
on you.
Yeah.
The
Right?
Lego version of a
Yeah,
gearbox. Oh my
exactly.
No, I told you they don't like their stuff associated with that.
Mm,
Sorry.
yes. Okay.
Yeah. No. It's yeah. I know people that are techs, and I'll utilize them as much as I can. I will pay for
Mhm.
it if
Mhm.
they want to work on it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
not that I'm not willing to pay for it, guys. For us regular Joes, make sure you pay your techs, guys, because that is very important.
The teching isn't free.
Their time is very valuable, and we just lost Julian.
Oh,
No, we
Oh.
lost David.
no,
No,
we just
the
lost
other
the
one.
boy.
I'm alive. I'm just chilling
David.
here.
Okay,
Okay,
there's
and
David. All right.
all right, and he's back.
All right, so yeah, continue on, guys, because I think this segment is all for you guys, because for us regular Joes, we basically stop at that triage part, which is basically like,
Okay.
oh, it's internal. Well, that's it. We're sending it to a tech. That's
But,
where we stop.
and there's nothing wrong with that. And obviously, right now, this lobby is a little bit concentrated, you know, with a bunch of tech-minded people. But you know, like I was saying from our field report, it is like it seems like everyone's, you know, learning how to fish. You know, everyone's not just getting you know, fish given to them kind of feeling. Everyone's sort of trying to understand a general base knowledge of what to do with their gun, and that also makes things a lot easier, you know, especially when you deal with the tech and whatnot, because instead of bringing something and being like, it's broken, you know, it's just like, hey, I heard this knocking sound, and then they can kind of hone it down, and they can spend less time, you know, which also, you know, helps out you in the end as well, so that they don't have to look for, you know, needle in a haystack for a problem there. Okay, with that said, next topic is resources for general tech knowledge. I know we kind of went over it a little bit in the conversation previous here, but just for you guys, I will kind of go over the general resources that you guys use. I myself am a big user of YouTube, just because I really enjoy the visual aid aspect of it. That's mostly why I go through it. Sometimes I don't even have um, the audio on, because a lot of the videos that I find for some of the platforms that I look at happen to be in French. So
Oh.
I'm not French, so I can't understand it, and sometimes they don't have the subtitles on there. So I'll just you know, just still follow through with it, you know, because it's very much visual, taking apart airsoft gun, at least in my opinion. So it's very easy to see it and then sort of replicate what was done, other than some of the small parts on certain guns like that, as well as you know, Reddit is a really big one, although I feel like Reddit is more of like a flexing ground for a lot of people. They just kind of use it to just post and brag, I feel.
Yep, that's what it is.
Sounds like
Yeah.
that sounds about it.
And forums as well. I know I'm an old school kind of guy when I go with that, but you know, like the old Envision Power Board style forums and whatnot. There's still a lot of valuable information out there if you can find some of these forums, and just try and archive it, because it's like finding a book that's not attached to a library. You literally found it in one of those take a book alcoves out on the street or whatever it is, and you want to like photocopy that stuff. It's valuable information there. Let's see here, as well as I think my greatest resource, I don't know if the rest of you guys can sort of agree to this, but is learning from my own mistakes. I could tell you definitely trying to learn from my mistakes and try not to repeat them, because in airsoft it tends to be costly when you have to repeat the process more than once. So with that being said, let's start with David. What are your just go through and share sort of your go-to resources when it comes to airsoft teching. Oh, Dave, I think your phone's on
your phone
mute.
is mute. Dave's phone, you're on mute. Still
There
mute.
we go.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, perfect.
There we go. Okay, that's better. I think my first main go-to is probably YouTube or forums. Just those two, they're kind of 50-50 and even. If I can't find it on YouTube, I know I can find it on a forum somewhere. And then the other one is always going to sort of be manuals or manufacturer sort of details if I can find it on a website. I kind of like to try and figure out everything from a spec standpoint before kind of diving into everything. And then the other part is I'll talk to people that I know that either own the same thing or are techish and kind of sort of share knowledge. That's kind of I don't know. I'm always bouncing back and forth between things. I mean, it's the same thing with like sewing too. It's the same idea in my mind. I kind of go to multiple places to try and gather what I can know to kind of dive into something. And then, yeah, it's pretty much. Can you rephrase the question one more time? I think I'm missing a detail. I just had a brain fart.
Oh, well, just so like, so if you're trying to figure something out, right? What are your general resources? So like, let's say, you buy a new gun or something like that, and you want to kind of figure out the ins and outs of it, you know, what would you go through? Do you go right away to I guess to make it simpler for you to answer is, do you go straight to YouTube? Kind of, do you type it in, try and figure out, is there a disassembly video? Or is there sort of like a general breakdown?
Really. It depends if it breaks. I usually actually read the manual if it comes with one.
Mm-hmm.
Or the other one, the first one is to go to the manufacturer's website and kind of read the specs on it, and then find the exploded manual if I can.
Mm-hmm.
And then for gearbox stuff, if I'm going to break into it and toy with it, which I do with everything, yes, I will definitely go to forums or YouTube almost immediately. I like forums a little bit more sometimes. Usually the detail is a little bit more intricate if people type it up versus I find YouTube gets a little glossy sometimes, and dudes kind of how would I say it? They overcast essentially the important bits and just talk about the generalities, which doesn't really help you out, especially if you need to know if something is proprietary or not. It is a huge pain in the ass when you go on YouTube and nobody mentions a damn thing. They go, oh, it's aftermarket compatible. It's such a what would you call it? It's such an abused phrase, I would say. Because like when I got the RPD, for example, recently, I found a form. I think it was actually one of my friends that sent it to me. It's either French or something else, but I had to translate it. And it's basically a complete teardown of the LCT RPD beforehand. Oh no, it's German. There we go. Bingo. Pop it open, and then he basically broke everything down, took out a caliper, talked about where the faults are and things like that. So forums tend to be a little bit more detailed, at least that's what I've found. And then there's very few YouTubers, I can't think of any on my head right now, that kind of dive in enough to kind of give you really good details. There are some companies that are doing that now. I think some of the bigger name brands in the US are trying to give people better details, at least so you know you don't get 1,000 tech questions, I guess, because that seems to be the theme nowadays, you know. But yeah, that's kind of the the general base for me, at least. Yeah,
Okay.
I like my forums.
All right. Yeah. Well, being able to read and stuff like that, I think, as well as having a visual aid, both go hand in hand. I'm sure anyone who's looked on your blog can tell that you're a very detail-oriented guy, and if you want a very clear sort of list of breakdown on platforms that you like, you definitely are a great example of being able to understand those sorts of things. Okay, with that, Riot, I know earlier you were saying that you were using YouTube or forums. Are there any other resources that you use for your general tech knowledge?
No, just the basics, like everyone else, kind of like YouTube or a forum. I use the forum to find out how to HPA the shotgun, and then I use the YouTube video then the next time to figure out how to take apart the KSG tactical shotgun that I have as well. I pretty much, that was just how it went. Yeah, I agree. David was right. Like the YouTube videos can sometimes just gloss over things, and you're like halfway through taking apart the gun, and you're like, wait, what? When we were supposed to do that, right? And you're like, oh, okay. And you rewind, you go back, and you're like, don't see them do it, and you're like, okay, I guess I'll just walk through the fog here by myself. But yeah, in general, just YouTube and like the forums are nice because the forums are usually like, they're old, but they were done by like some really smart people, in my opinion. Like some people who are like whizzes when it came to like teching. So those ones are always like gold mines to find and to use, especially for what I had to do.
Okay, all right. Raven, I know you were mentioning same thing as the rest of us here, YouTube and forums. Is there anything else that you use specifically? Do you do the same thing as me here, learning from your own mistakes, or because I didn't hear that from the other guys
Yeah,
there.
yeah. I did that in the beginning. Before I was a little bit more like arrogant, and I was like, oh yeah, I could definitely do this by myself. Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah,
It's a very costly and expensive thing to do. So better to go down the Google route and put in like the blah 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 certain gun review, and then look for in-depth reviews, and also look into forums, and YouTube videos are really helpful also. Another thing is Facebook groups are actually really helpful.
Oh, that's a great point.
There are a lot of dedicated like airsoft gun groups on Facebook, surprisingly. For example, I have a Tokyo Mori MWS. From that group, I learned a lot of stuff on how to work on it, how to tech on it, what upgrades to do on it, what not to do. Obviously, it's an international group page, so there's a lot of like mistranslations from Facebook. So obviously, I would have to try and break it down from Google Translate, and even doing that, it's not really good. I do also look on international forums, like I go into Hungarian airsoft forums also. Those are really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, it's since I understand the language, then from there I could pretty much get information on certain type of platforms that are like that I really have a hard time finding information on the English speaking websites. So maybe they would have more information on there. But yeah, mostly just YouTube forums and Facebook group pages. Facebook group pages are really good. That's what I've noticed.
Okay, well, and that's a very fair point that you bring up, actually, relating to the international forums. Unfortunately for me, I can speak Japanese to get in and out of trouble, but
Yeah.
my reading of the language is very poor, and I bet you, an arm and a leg that they have gold mines in the Japanese forums when it comes to airsoft teching and whatnot, just because they are under such strict rules over there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, Julian. For as long as you have been in airsoft and everything like that, what have sort of been the resources you've been time and time again going back to to sort of aid you in your general tech knowledge. Like, I guess a question I have for you specifically is, have manuals been as useful from the beginning, or have they sort of gotten worse as time has gone along? I find that I don't know, manuals don't always help, just because they tend to just be a picture and then a barrel cleaning explanation.
Um, I'll be honest on my end. I've never used a manual. I've usually just been because back then too, when manuals first came out, they were primarily all in Japanese, because back then you can only get Tokimori, right?
Well, there you go.
Then followed by a bunch of other stuff, and then manuals, like Dave said, yeah, they're slowly being phased out, kind of stuff, right? So, with that being said, again, back then, was the primary source information was forums. That was the platform that we had used back then, not just basically for teching, but for everything else about airsoft, right? So a lot of information was posted up on forums. So a lot of people can go to it to grab information. And then YouTube, I think, came around probably about 6-8 years later, and then more information became available on YouTube. So then, just like everyone here, everyone is pointing for YouTube first, kind of as a guide, and from there, if you need to expand the information or details that they need, then going to forums, going to Reddit, Facebook, or going into the manual if it helps, right? Kind of thing. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, so this is a question I'm gonna have for all of you guys, because this is something that I don't see very often or hear about very often, which is sort of teching with supervision, or sort of like a airsoft workshop. Do you guys, what's your guys' opinion on something like that? And do you think something like that is needed in the space of the airsoft, sort of to help the community progress and mature? We'll start with Raven.
Yes, I believe so. That'd be nice. I know that I think I watched this YouTube video like a couple of years ago. I believe Umbrella Armory was like hosting like this course where you could be certified as a tech and all that stuff. Oh, sorry, my video went down. Okay. So yeah, I believe so. If shops like these existed, to give people overall knowledge of what to do and what not to do would be great, because then they would have the general knowledge of servicing their own airsoft replica, and having at least the basic knowledge to do so without totally going crazy on it and screwing it up in the end.
Okay.
So
Okay.
in the end, it'll probably save them some money. But then if they want to go into more advanced stuff, then obviously maybe they could hold shops for advanced teching. But then if they just want to do like more advanced stuff, then obviously it'd be much better to give it to their teachers or to the people who are supervising them.
Okay. Okay. Julian, what's your opinion on that? Has something like that existed at all, or was there someone in the past who sort of did something like that and kind of just fell through? What's your opinion on the whole idea of an airsoft workshop?
Personally, I think the idea is great, because I actually have run workshops before
Okay.
in the last 10-15 years. So each time when people come in, they get to see. The other part I actually have done before, I've done peer-to-peer teching. So it means like if a guy came to me, I'm not sure what's my gun, I'm like, okay, well, like say, like let's just say that the motor doesn't work. You hear a clicking noise, right? Okay, well, I gave you two options. One, I can either do it for you, or I will get you to do it, but I'll be beside you to show you what to do. So
Okay.
in that sense, he at least gives him the ability to at least know a little bit of basic of teching, while don't have to charge him, right? He gains that knowledge, right? And then same thing, I would just pass on to the next person, right?
Definitely having a tech there supervising probably boosts the confidence of the other person who's sort of just getting into it. That's a fair point that you make there, Julian. David, what about you? What are your opinions on the whole idea of an airsoft workshop?
I've always kind of liked the idea. I thought about flirting with it in the past. The only caveat to that, at least I can see that may cause issues, is these days there are so many different types of gearboxes now. It's not just version 1s and 3s, or pardon me, version 2s and 3s anymore, as they're the hallmark standard, but you've got a plethora of different things and spin-offs of that. So I think generally it's a good idea to do one of those two gearboxes essentially as an overview, and kind of teach people how a gearbox sort of functions just in the simplest form, and then essentially going from there. It's kind of a how-to guide of how to open and close it, more or less. Gearboxes are progressively getting more complex, which is good and it's bad. So nowadays, with the integration of MOSFETs, especially becoming standard issue, people need to be a little bit more tech savvy, so to speak. And I mean, I'm not a very I'm not a very techie person when it comes to circuitry or understanding computer board systems. I do understand basic wiring and how to set that kind of stuff up, but I mean, when it comes to mechanical things, it's a great option, but it won't really work when you're talking MOSFETs now, especially for like some of the more advanced things, because I've seen a lot of guys screw up very basic installations of simple MOSFETs, just drop-ins. It's very easy to toy with, and to have it go wrong. So, I mean, mechanical side, yeah, I can definitely see it, but for the electronic stuff, it's kind of where I run into issues, or proprietary nature of things, you know. But I like Julian's idea of essentially sitting down next to a person and kind of going through it with them to kind of teach them how to do that. I think one-on-ones are a lot better too. People will definitely gain more knowledge from the benefit of having some more interpersonal work done with them, especially over their gearbox, versus having a class per se where you actually sit down and you all kind of take something apart. Whether you have an instructor or not, or a couple going through, it can be very complex, and you need a high instructor to low student ratio basically to sort of counteract that, to really I guess kind of assist people. But there's no standard practice for it too, which also makes it very difficult, because I've always seen different techs do things differently, and it's interesting. And then sometimes you see things you're like, that works, but it's kind of questionable, you know.
Definitely, and I can agree with that. There are definitely different teaching styles from different people, just like, you know, how it was for us going to school and whatnot. We had different teachers. Some teachers we really liked, and some teachers we'll never speak of again. So you know, hopefully, you know, maybe we can bring something like this, or something like this can come back into fruition again, sort of help the community feel more comfortable with just working on their own stuff. Riot, what's your sort of opinion on the whole idea of an airsoft workshop? I know with like teching with supervision, I've done that with you a couple times to help you out with this other things, but would you sort of benefit from the idea of a airsoft workshop?
Like, I like the idea as well, but I've seen it firsthand when I did stuff with my carpentry courses, that the one-on-one stuff is so much more beneficial. So if someone were to come up to me and would be like, "Hey, we're gonna take apart this gearbox right now, you and me. I'll be right next to you. I'm gonna teach you some tips and tricks while we do it, step by step." I'd be like, 100%, let's do it. Because otherwise, if I'm in like a group of 10 guys, or 10 people, let's say, and we're all taking apart the same gearbox, and someone has a problem across the room, well, depending on how many instructors are inside that classroom at that point, that person might get a lot of attention for God knows how many minutes, right?
Right. No, totally understandable.
And then you can't proceed then, right? Because you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything else, because then I might cause a problem too that could have been like overseen or could have been fixed. So I like the idea. I feel like a lot of people these days are visual learners now than they were back in the day. I guess. At least I am, and I know a lot of guys that are. It's just easier.
Okay.
So
All
yeah.
right. Yeah, totally makes sense. And it definitely sounds like a great idea. You two in the background there, I'm gonna throw you two together again. what are your guys' opinions on the whole idea of an airsoft workshop?
I guess I'll answer this because I do come from a teaching background.
Oh God, you're talking to me.
So I get why a workshop would be great because of the
Mhm.
fact that it does give you that opportunity to ask questions to the instructor and as well as get some, well, not some one-on-one, but sort of gain some knowledge out of it. As an instructor and someone who writes lesson plans and stuff, yeah, for me, I see a benefit for the student. Someone who comes forward and is willing to learn is usually gonna jump into some sort of workshop right away. And with with a proper instructor, right? It's again, like, you can tech really well, but you can't. There's parts where you can't teach well because you're just not inapt to teach. Um, I find this conversation interesting because I'm starting to realize that there is a lot more to the teching world than just open something up. There is that fine tuning skills of you guys going out there learning different gearboxes, learning different things. There's different quirks to different things. You guys have different things that you try and troubleshoot, and it's not like something that's documented or it's something that you've learned but you've never sort of documented or put into place or you have a mental note of it, right? With workshops, it's great because you're doing a knowledge sharing. In a ways, what I'm trying to figure out in my head is basically how do I get you guys to sort of teach. YouTube being the greatest tool of all, trying to figure out like if I should go out there, get you guys to work on something, and then film you as you're going along, disassembling something and then putting stuff together again. Because it seems like that seems to be the common one is putting stuff, disassembling something and then putting it back together properly. Because you guys are talking about missing parts, things flying out, and then it just goes. It's boggling for me because of the fact that you find a YouTube video trying to explain you why this happens. It's better to have someone else do it or have them do it than to have it done on your expensive. A spring would fly out on your expensive like AEG, and then that spring's gone or you got missing parts already, right? So I'm just trying to wrap around my head like how should I do this in a way that we could teach other people so that they have a general knowledge of what to do, right? And I'm thinking like I'll just have you guys sit down on a tech bench and then I'll film it and then while you guys are talking, right? Sort of like what we do in a podcast where we go through in depth in detail of what happens or what goes on in your mind, right? Because everybody has different opinions on how to do things, and that's what I want to capture is you guys taking apart or disassembling something and then putting it back together. It's the same for me too when it comes to gas blowback. I'll watch videos of how people take down stuff. They might have different tools than me. They might have different ways of doing things. They might have, they have a different sense and feel of how gas blowback works. And for me, I have the same thing. It's like I have when I touch it, I'll feel it, and then I know how the system works. I know how much friction it's getting. I know if it needs cleaning. I know if it needs this and that. Right? It's just I'm in tuned to what it is. So I guess it's hard to teach that in a way, right? And it's just one of those things where you just have to a long lengthy video, break it down for the user, explain what to do, explain why, explain what happens, and then put it back together again. So yeah, I get it. That's not really much of a answering your question there, but no, I'm just looking at it from an outside perspective here.
Definitely what I'm sort of getting is that, and it seems like Julian had hit it when he was saying when he had done it before, and it's definitely something that seems to be needed again or have it ongoing. I have a couple of ideas on myself on how I'd like to have it sort of implemented, similar to how I did sort of workshops at like community centers. I sort of kind of see how it can sort of be translated and related to airsoft and whatnot. Just because like you are saying, there is a lot that can kind of go into it. Mac, how about yourself? Would you be interested in something like that, or are you still like a you don't have enough time for something like that and
No,
you're just
no,
gonna
no,
throw
no.
the gun at someone?
No, so don't get me wrong. Like I could definitely, you know, I'd be down for a workshop because like I'm more of a hands-on person. So if I definitely like learn how to do it once, so I can, remember the basics and everything like that and that sort. But basically, if I'm, trying more along the lines of like, just trying to play, which is most of the situation when I have the time and such, right? It's gonna be, I'm gonna throw it off to somebody. But yeah, a workshop sounds great, because then it's, if it like in that sense, it would help you be able to troubleshoot a problem a lot easier, and just get more comfortable along the lines of being able to open up the gearbox yourself without having to directly just be like, hey, my gun's not working, and that could be a list of variety of things, right?
Okay. All right.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah, of course.
I think having the workshops too for people that are new, by educating them in the workshops or even just peer-to-peer, right? You get to transfer, or I'm assuming all techs can agree, the same terminology we will all use to a new user, right? So
Yeah.
let's just say that you have a guy that says, okay, my gun can't shoot far. Okay, then you tell him, how's your hop? And he'll ask you, what's a hop?
Oh.
Right? So for us as
Yeah.
techs, if you can educate guys to let them know, hey, this is what it is, and this is what it does, and this is how it works. So then when they come back, hey, my hop's not working because something's off is going side. I think it's off, but I'm not sure. Us as techs can now assess it a lot more faster versus us trying to second guess. Okay, the guy says, my gun has no range. What do you mean? Right? Versus if you tell straight up, oh, I think it's my hop on my nub and my hop up unit. Okay, then we know immediately what the issue
Exactly.
is.
Oh yeah, I've run into that so many times, and it's saved people, because you think right away, right? Oh, compression issue. It's got to be in the gearbox, and it's just like, no, they took apart their hop up unit, and they had their hop up arm all the way down. So when they pulled the barrel out, they lost their nub. That's why they have no hop. Simple stuff
Or
like
with
that.
that, they done the barrel upside down too.
Oh my
We saw
gosh,
that.
I've seen that a couple times too,
Yeah.
actually.
So knowledge, having the workshops and peer-to-peer helps, because you can pass on the at least the basic knowledge to guys, so they at least have they can talk the same language with us when we want to work on their stuff, right? When they have issues.
And that totally makes sense, and I actually like that, sort of just teaching the ins and outs, the basic jargon of the tech world. Okay, so with that, we're going to move on to our next topic, which is, what equipment do you need to start teching and doing it yourself? With that said, I'm actually going to shoot this question right back to you, Julian. What are some tools that you have in your toolbox to sort of get the job done for yourself?
Yo, bet you it's a table.
Actually,
It's
believe
a
it
really
or
big
not,
table.
and I was noted to be like why I do this. When I started working on my stuff, I had a habit of working on my legs.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And on top of that, I'm not sure if you guys do it, but I work on the gearbox upside down, meaning that my right hand has the spring tension and my left hand's holding the gearbox. I don't know if you guys do that, but that's what I do. So,
Interesting.
but with the tool side, well, over the years, I accumulate too many tools. Well, I can say that for sure. But your most basic, most common is a Phillips screwdriver, a flathead, Allen key set. And that should start you off for the beginning. Then after that, once you get to dive in more, you figure out all the little nicks and tricks to help you. Oh, sorry, and a small mini flathead and a small mini Phillips, because the gearbox has just that many screw sizes and Allen keys. So well, that's kind of stuff. Oh, sorry, and a mallet, not a hammer. I've seen too many times guys smashing the gearboxes. Clip, they broke off the upper receiver, all the rulers. So I need to look, and I look at them like, well, I can't fix this because why? Oh, the gun's cracked.
Yeah, you need a new receiver, bro.
So mallet's definitely important, not a hammer.
Okay, okay, good to know. Good to know. Okay, let's see here. Raven, how about yourself? What are some equipment that you use or that you sort of recommend people who are wanting to get into DIYT?
So just like what Julian said, yeah, the basic stuff, Phillips flathead, get the regular size and also the small size. Because yeah, there are smaller screws within the gearbox itself, and also depending on what version gearbox it is, and also from which company. because I've been starting to notice nowadays that a lot of companies are moving towards Torx. So Torx is also really good. And also hex key set also. What I primarily have or use, I do a lot of electrical work also. So I have a soldering kit and a multimeter and all that fancy jazz to make sure that all the leads and connections on the gearbox itself is working, and also to make sure that the gearbox, and I'm sorry, to make sure that the MOSFET is not touching the gearbox, so there won't be so the gearbox itself won't kill the MOSFET itself. So just those typical things. Those, if you want to go more into advanced stuff, then obviously you would need those if you want to do a lot of electrical work and all that stuff. But doing the basic stuff, just basic maintenance, those are the certain tools that you would need, like what I previously mentioned.
Okay. All right. Ryan, how about yourself there? What kind of tools do you have to help yourself with the whole teching situation for yourself?
I've kind of, I kind of grew up collecting a lot of tools as well, like Julian over there. So I kind of have like a big old bag of tools. But my favorite ones in there are definitely like the small little screwdrivers and just other little like things that you could use for taking apart small objects, I guess you could say, that use screws or nuts would be my top kind of priority, along with just things for, like, for instance, for me, taking apart, like, I don't really know if you guys understand, but you can't take apart the shotgun stocks with a screw. They've been glued on, so you have to melt the glue and then pry them open to get at the internals, and it's a really hard process. So on my list is a heat gun.
Okay.
And like a kind of like a surgical like hobby knife, so I can get in there and kind of pry a little bit, heat it up, and then pry it open again. And then yeah, if you're gonna do any kind of electrical work, just make sure you have wire strippers, a soldering iron with the proper ventilation equipment as well, because solder is kind of toxic. Don't want to breathe that stuff in. Yeah, pretty much everything else everyone else has said is pretty much what I would have to as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
David, how about yourself? What kind of tools would you suggest to people who want to get into the whole teching scene? Or what do you have yourself to make your job easier?
I'm kind of like Julian and Ryan as well. I've collected tools over the years, and it's ironic we talk about this because I was actually going to clean a lot of it out today.
Oh, I'll take your tools, Dave.
I'll take your tools too. 50-50?
Yeah.
Oh, great. The vultures have come. Shouldn't have mentioned it.
I smell tools.
Oh, man, the best way to kind of start when you want to start getting into tools, I always like Mastercraft. You can kind of buy like a small sort of tool set. Always go with metric if you can. Generally, almost everything in Airsoft is metric. There's very few things I've ran into that's Imperial. You can pick up Imperial stuff as well. It's usually good to have a bit of both. I have soldering iron as well, solder, all the little bits essentially that allow you to do just a lot of the basic stuff. I think my favorite tool, which I don't really show a lot, is my caliper, because I like to measure things and actually see how things fit together, which is really important. And then, oh shit, what is I gotta think about it. I've actually improvised a few tools myself to get, oddly enough, one of the biggest issues I've ran into over the years of teching is dudes stripping screws on gearbox shells, which is a huge pain in the ass. You either have one of two ways to get it out. You can drill it out, or you have to get, I can't remember what it's called, but it's a device that goes in basically and it extracts the screw. It takes forever. It's a pain in the ass.
Takes a while.
Yeah, there we
go.
I've used I use two methods for that. I'm not sure about you, Raven. I use one's a Dremel to create a flat line.
Yeah, I do that also when it
Or
gets stuck.
the other way I've done before, and it works. I take those small bits as a torque,
Yeah.
and I take it with a base, screwdriver, right? I'll go over the strip part. I'll take a hammer. I'll smash it in,
Oh, okay.
and then I make the torques to create a new grip on
Yeah,
the
notch
screw,
so you can get it out.
and
Yeah.
then I unscrew it out.
Yeah, and then you
Yeah,
put
I
a
did-
new screw in.
Yeah, and you buy a new
Screw.
screw. Yeah.
Yeah, I use a Dremel generally, and then I make a notch, and then I have a tool bit that I made myself just to pull it out. I don't even know what to call it, but it helps. I mean, it's ridiculous how silly little things like that kind of help you out. And it's weird because sometimes you end up having to DIY things, especially in airsoft. You end up doing a lot of that just to kind of fix small stuff to get it out. Nowadays, there's better solutions, which is
Mhm.
great. And then I think because airsoft has kind of come to a point where it's gone from being just a hobby to where there needs to be a higher standard. A lot of companies are actually using better materials. Cough, cough. Don't quote me on that because a lot of them still use a lot of shit out there. But yeah, my favorite tool in the toolbox though is by far the caliper. Measuring nozzles, ironically, like air nozzles and hop ups, especially doing hop up
Yep.
tests, is one of those things I do a lot of. And there's a lot of dudes that just throw shit into a gearbox and go, "Oh, this will work every time," and you would not believe how many different nozzle specs you have. It is incredibly frustrating. And then some people like sand nozzles down. Don't do that. It's usually not a good way to go about it, especially when you have imperfections in air seals. But yeah, I like my caliper. It's kind of my favorite one to go to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I wanna-
fair point that you mentioned as well. Go ahead, Julian.
Sorry, I want to add to Dave. I too use a digital caliper. Same thing like him.
Yeah.
I use it for nozzle checking
Mhm.
because I've seen issues where guns or guys, it doesn't feed or it's getting
Yep.
stuck, something like
Yeah.
that. It
Mhm.
turns out that the length of the nozzle going into the hop unit is either too short or too long, right? And different versions of gun, different versions of hop units. Personally, too, I also use it for shimming. I don't know if the other techs here use it. But I do shimming through
Yep.
math calculation. So that's why I use it. That's why I use the digital caliper.
Yep.
I'd like to add a quick note to our viewers as well. In the last 20 plus years, airsoft has grown tremendously quite a bit over probably the last 10. In the earlier days, maybe we're talking from the 1980s to just about before 2000, airsoft parts were primarily only about 2 companies or 3 max. And they have the same tolerance, same build, same spec in every shape and form. Now you have easily 30 to 40 different brands. And the problem I find, and I'm sure with Dave and Raven can agree, is that guy comes in, hey, I got this and this and this.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, great. We don't know
Yeah.
what part works with which part, so now we have to spend even more time troubleshooting because we know the problem. And someone here mentioned about proprietary. Some of these brands and some of these manufacturers started making their own type, their own shape and spec and size, so that people just stick to that. And then, unfortunately, it sucks for us as tech, sucks even more for the customers because now the customer wants to try something else, they can't because the manufacturer
makes it harder to
made it different in spec. And now we have to spend more time troubleshooting and doing testing for compatibility, right?
Yeah.
So again, as
To
I said,
expand-
it's sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
To expand on Julian's point too, a good point to take in for a lot of viewers is if you're going to start upgrading, make a parts list, but stick to 2 to 3 brands and don't mix and match too many. Because the more you start doing that, especially with a lot of aftermarket stuff, I've seen one dude who brought me something that was like 6 or 7 different brands. And it was really frustrating because everything was a different spec and you're like, oh shit. And then trying to figure out what fits together and what doesn't is a huge pain in the butt. There are some companies that rebrand an aftermarket the same stuff. I know SHS produces a whole bunch of different lines basically, but you can figure it out pretty quick if it's their stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's other companies that clone it very closely, but the spec is slightly different or the material properties are too. Big one for me is always bushings and bearings. Those ones are a huge pain in the butt. And I've seen somebody where they bought 2 different bushing sets and used 2 different bushings and bearing sets in tandem. And they were of different size and spec, which was a huge pain in the butt, especially for shimming. So I had to throw it out, unfortunately, and replace it. So
So on Dave's
it's-
point,
yeah.
it's try to stick to one, preferably. If you guys every
Yeah.
rounds that broke down and you want to do an upgrade or repair and you
Yeah.
want, let's say, a whole full, okay, that's fine. Try to
Mhm.
stick with one brand because at least
Yeah,
you know
limit
with the
it.
one brand, they are all would be easily compatible versus
Yeah,
you know, if you
compatibility
put like 6 or
issues.
7, then the amount of hours you will spend is not even worth our time at that point if you give us a bad
Yeah.
mesh of parts. With that, I want to add a story. I have one guy before that came in my store. He came in to show me his AK. Okay, what's wrong with the AK? Oh, it's in pieces. I look, okay, there's the body parts in 5. Where are the internals? Oh, it's in these 5 bags. I'm like,
Ooh.
oh, where do
I
I
love that.
start? Like, oh yeah, it's all here together. Can you fix it? Oh yeah, I need it back in like 2 hours.
Oh,
Oh,
whoa.
okay.
Rush order, rush
All right,
order.
priority, right?
All right,
So,
that'll be
So-
$200.
Yikes.
yeah, that's too much of a rush even.
That,
So.
that's like, yeah, you don't even know what it is, what could go wrong, if anything. Man, that's a nightmare. I always hate
That's
stuff
why
that comes in a box.
I guess that's why they always joke that aftermarket parts are 99.9% compatible. I really think they should say 95% compatible because there's some parts that you just get that just do not fit with something they're supposed to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Or when you have like a bad batch of something and you're just like, wow, this is just trash.
The worst
SHS
part I
pistons
have
like
is
3
actually,
years ago.
yeah, or even gears. Even if the off spec less is
Oh,
like
yeah.
by 1 or 2 millimeters, that the gun just wouldn't work, and you wouldn't even
Yeah,
know
or if
until
the
you start
teeth don't
diagnosing. Yeah.
Oh,
the worst is-
exactly, and that's actually a good point. When you guys talk about off-spec stuff, just because it can be the
Mhm.
difference between a smoothly sounding AEG and the difference of whoa, what was going on with your gun there? Oh, it's fine. Look, it's only pulling 10 amps. It's fine. And you're
Yeah.
Oh
like,
no,
that
it's
doesn't
not
sound like
a
it.
gun anymore. It's a coffee grinder.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I actually,
So-
I actually want to add something to this conversation. In the gas teching world, having offset or like aftermarket brands is similar to what you guys are talking about in terms
Yeah.
of like a couple of millimeters, like micromillimeters off of the spec. Things like this is the reason why I say stock is king for Wii's is because
hmm
they were designed for it. Their measurements are correct. And depending on where you get them and stuff, some manufacturers will say that this is a Wii brand, but they actually machine it themselves. And if they're good, they actually have it 1-to-1 spec. But if you get it from the actual manufacturer, it'll also work, much better. When I have people coming in to deal with the gas stuff, and they say, "Oh, I bought this RA Tech, but all your other internals, from metal to aluminum, all of a sudden." There's huge differences in two different metals, right? You're trying to get friction on two different metals. It's not gonna work very well. So either you go all the
Yeah.
way RA Tech, or you just stick to stock, right? Because some people say,
Wait,
yeah, go ahead.
have you ever had the self-destructing Wii because somebody dropped one RA tech part in and it causes everything to kind of go chaotic?
They like for you guys, right? There's plenty of you guys for gas techs out there. It'd be like you got one shotgun tech, and then there's one gas tech out there, and then once they know you're a gas tech, they'll go up to you and be like, "Why is it not working?" And then I look at it and I go, "Well, that's mashed up. That's also not good, and you didn't clean it properly." Well, that's number one. Actually. But anyways, yeah, no, it's similar to what you guys are talking about here, but in the gas world, everything is basically there's the power that we get is basically gas, friction. We're fighting with cold. We're fighting with heat. A lot more elements to it. There's moving mechanical parts, but it needs to be
Yeah.
lubed.
Okay.
The one thing the one thing that I want to add is tools is an AR wrench is a big one for
Thank you.
Yeah.
Actually, I
Yes,
was gonna
AR
bring that
wrench,
up.
AR
Yes.
wrench. Anyways, yeah, continue.
Okay, yeah. So for myself here, all of you guys have given great examples, and I'm probably going to repeat some of the examples here. But for myself, it's definitely the Phillips screwdriver, more specifically the long extended version, because you need something that'll get into your buffer tube. One of the number one problems that I usually see on the weekend is my buffer tube is loose, which then leads into a hey, I ripped my wires out because
Oh,
I
God.
didn't tighten my stock like like you told me to, so stuff like that. So
Oh.
that's really, really important because you're not going to get very far into fixing your gun without it. As Schoolboy mentioned, a Mastercraft kit, because you don't need to buy an expensive toolkit necessarily, but you need to buy a useful toolkit. And
Yeah,
with
something
that,
that works.
yeah, one of the multi screwdriver kits definitely can be useful. Also, having the solid screwdriver kits can be really useful because sometimes losing your bit in a airsoft gun can be quite annoying. A soldering iron is a very useful tool to have just because sometimes your wire can just come right off, like some of the old school guns can come right off the fuse, and now your gun doesn't work because you need to make an electrical connection. And do not be one of those guys that says I'll just tape it with electrical tape and it's all good. I shame on you people.
That's what we do for gas, though.
Of
Buy
course.
heat shrink. Buy heat shrink.
Yeah.
True,
Shrink.
heat shrink, yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, I want to add one more to the tech.
Mhm.
We should try to encourage everyone to, if you're buying a multi screwdriver bit, get the one that's extended long as the T version or T handle.
yes,
And the reason
yes,
why
yes,
I say
yes.
that is because everyone probably has experienced a long screw. You jam it straight into the stock tube, you hit
can
the
strip
screw,
it.
and you can't turn it. It's stuck.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you
yeah.
if you put in the T handle style, because it's like a T, you can actually have more torque strength.
Yeah.
And then when you turn it up, it gives you that more ability versus you wrecking your wrist trying to open it up, right?
Exactly. And as Ryan mentioned earlier too, heat gun is very useful because I know another thing that a lot of
Mhm.
people would like to do is take off those ugly orange flash hiders or ugly flash hiders that some people want to take off of their guns. And let me tell you, they dip those things in red Loctite so that they
Oh,
don't intend to come off. And having a heat gun is definitely required for something like that because if you're living at home with your parents or you have a significant other with you at your house, they're gonna kind of question you when you have the gun in the kitchen with the barrel tip inside the boiling pot of water. Don't ask me why. Okay.
Wait, you did that?
I saw it
Damn.
on I
God.
saw it on YouTube. Okay.
Are you
I
sure?
had to try it.
sure.
Sure.
Has anyone here
Okay,
used a soldering iron
okay.
before?
What's that, Julian?
Has anyone here used a soldering iron?
I have.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because usually that's another trick where you can do instead of dealing with the smell. I know with plastic,
Mhm.
next thing you know, you create toxic smells in the air. I've seen that multiple times. You just put the soldering iron
You can
to the outer barrel at the tip, and that should melt off the Loctite or make it loose, and then you can turn out the
Oh,
orange
there.
flash
That's
hider.
actually a genius
Yeah.
idea. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
your
actually
soldering
you have
iron is a good concentrated heat to
Hmm.
metal to help melt stuff if you have Loctite issues, right? Same with
Mhm.
guys, if you
Yeah.
guys do gearboxes and they Loctite the screws and you can't get it out, then
Mhm.
that's one another ways you could do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
If you got a girlfriend or a fiance or a wife, you can always pour the blow dryer too. That works
The
too.
hair dryer, yeah.
Yeah,
Hair
hair dryer
dryer.
works.
Yep, hair dryer is another
Hair
good
dryer.
option as well.
That's what I did for the first time I took
Mhm.
apart a stock.
But yeah, no. So when it comes to tools and stuff like that, you are gonna have specialty tools that you're gonna need along the way.
Mhm.
I'm not suggesting that everyone goes out and gets a bunch of them, but there are milestones in teching, in my opinion, when it comes to getting certain tools, because that tool then allows you to elevate sort of the progress that you're going to be going through sort of when it comes to teching. Like for example, right, like hey, I want to get into my the back of my gun. What do I need? I need that extended Phillips screwdriver. Now you know how to work on the rear end connections of your gun and whatnot, and you know how to tighten your buffer tube. That's just one step forward into learning how to disassemble your gun and whatnot. With that said, obviously all of us here are pretty confident, I believe, in our teching abilities and whatnot. What are some of the pros and cons, guys, of teching yourself or doing it yourself teching just in general? Because as we had mentioned earlier, there isn't really a certification process. So there's no sort of like thing that you can kind of go back and be like, yeah, no, I know exactly what I'm talking about, or yeah, I know everything that is to know on that sort of platform. So that question, I'll start with Raven. What are your opinions on that?
Sorry, what was the question again?
Just
Yeah,
the pros
that
and
was a really
cons.
long one. Oh, pros and cons.
The pros and cons of just doing it yourself. So like because just imagine it from like a perspective. Let's say you're not as technically inclined, like as yourself, but as you know, let's
Somebody
use
who's brand new.
yeah, let's use Justin as an example in your group, okay?
Okay, okay.
Let's say he was trying to do something. Would you, you know, what are the pros and cons of him trying to do it himself? Is it something that you would suggest someone to be doing, or is it something that you kind of like suggest people to sort of, you know, ease into, kind of?
Well, I really suggest people easing into it. So if you don't know something, ask somebody who knows, like who knows better, or ask like your local tech, or ask anybody who knows a bit more knowledge about it. Because you could start. It's pretty easy to get into a gearbox, but then the struggle of putting it back together and actually making the replica work again, like how it was intended to. Like how it was before, is a big difference. Because yeah, you could put it back, but then did you put back the certain air seal components back correctly? Did you leave the O-rings so you get a proper air seal? Did you install the bucking correctly in the right orientation and all that stuff? So if you do those things in a certain method or way, then you could be like, this is not for me, then it may displease them from actually wanting to learn more. So yeah, ease into it. Learning by yourself is, for example, if it was Justin, then yeah, most likely he would try it out himself at first, and then if he doesn't, this is speaking from experience. If he doesn't know what to do, then he obviously reaches out to me. Then from there on, we start to converse on what's going on. If I can't help him online, then obviously then I would take it to take his rifle, and then I would work on it. But then I would try and guide him through the proper steps on how to troubleshoot it and all that stuff.
Okay, all right. David, how about yourself? The pros and cons of just general DIYT.
Pros, it'll probably save your wallet a bunch of money from spending tech fees, taking it to dudes like us. Cons, there's a lot of things that go into it, and oh my god, it's on the tip of my tongue. Right, it can get very expensive if you don't take the time to actually do things step by step. I always like to break things down. So being a person who's very tech savvy and likes to work with his hands, being patient and kind of working your way into things is sort of the best way to do it. And then if you run into issues, before you go shit and grab everything, shove it in the bag, try to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about, or converse with them first. Most techs are very handy and prefer to help people out, unless you get one of the salty dudes out there. But the vast majority of techs will try to help you put something back together, because I think we're all kind of in the same ballpark. We don't like spending money on our guns, taking it to someone else, and we would prefer to do it ourselves. So generally, it's kind of how would you say it? I'll shake your hand and help you out, just to make sure that your wallet doesn't feel it. That's at least my train of thought, because at the end of the day, whenever I've had people bring stuff to me, especially nowadays, I don't really like charging people and going, oh man, it's such a simple fix. I would prefer to tell someone how to do it and then show them, just so that they can do it themselves. And then you always get some folks who'll be like, no, I don't want to do it, and they'll insist.
Yep.
Which, yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that I guess as a tech, you always kind of look at it in the sense of the pros always kind of outweigh the cons, but the cons unfortunately have a more dire punishment for your wallet and time expedience. Yeah, that's a big one.
Okay, all right. Julian, your opinions on the pros and cons of just teching yourself and doing it yourself.
Pros is, like I said before earlier, it's about education and knowledge, right? Knowing the different parts and different things and what's it called. Cons really is just time, right? Obviously, you're putting time into learning something new to try that, but at the end, I think the pro outweighs the con, right? And it also helps to, like, for people that want to get into it, when they can have conversations with other airsofters and talk about same things or talking about the guns, because everyone talks about the gun. That's a giver, right? Thing is a comparison to RC cars. You don't get a guy that buys a 5,000 RC car and, hey, my car is good and something. Okay, what's under the hood? It's like it's kind of the same thing, right? You always can be tuning RC cars. So airsoft is a little bit similar in that sense, because you always can be tuning your gun, other than internals or externals or both. So building up that knowledge a little bit into it, understanding how it works, like the most basics about how does a hop up work. Especially you get a 10-year-old 12-year-old, oh, my gun doesn't shoot far. Well, you explain to him this is how hop up works.
Right.
Then you pass on that knowledge, right? And then you can build deeper, longer monitoring conversations and develop them and teams and that kind of stuff, because you all are talking the same language, right? So it helps. That's the and then I think that's the pros outweighs the con.
Okay. All right. Ryan, how about yourself? The pros and cons, because obviously you've gone through some hardships and headaches.
I still have that shotgun I need to fix.
Oh, okay. That sounds like a con.
Yeah, that is a con. God, let's see. The pros. It's always something you get to learn. It's always a learning opportunity. Even when you're a really experienced tech, you always end up like learning something, and that that's valuable, right? And then a con is you get to just kind of like pretend that you're like a real gunsmith or something. Well, at least for me, I'm like, haha, yes, I'm working on a real gun. Not actually working on a real gun, but I like to think I am. Yeah, that's for me. I pretty much also, for the pros. Besides those first two ones, I pretty much align with everyone else when it comes to their similar takes on it. The cons, for me at least, are sometimes you won't be able to find the answer the first time.
Okay.
That can be really frustrating. Like I've taken apart this KSG shotgun 3 times, and I still have no clue why it's not feeding. We're talking like full breakdown of the shotgun. So that's a con for me, because it's like I get frustrated easily, and I'm like, oh, what the heck am I doing wrong? Like I've watched the YouTube video 1,000 times and still haven't been able to find anything. Another con. That was just my big one.
Well, it's all good, my guy. Well, it's like, so just from listening to you guys and discussing this, it seems like it is not a bad idea for the airsoft community, for our viewers out there that are listening, to try and get a general base knowledge. It'll save you money in the long run, right? Obviously, us techs, we love taking your money, but at the same time, we also love to play. So the less guns we're working on all the time, the more time you'll see us out on the field playing with you guys. I'm sure most of the techs here are players first and then techs second, I hope. If not, I feel bad for you.
So that means tech, you have to tech less and play more now.
I knew I was going to get called out for that.
Yeah, you're going to be called out.
You just called yourself out there, buddy.
You gotta hide from Mac.
So
sorry.
So tech, now your quota is now, your maximum you can only work per weekend day is 3 guns. That's it.
Oh my God.
We're
gonna force that.
Yeah, and your time limit is 4 hours max.
We're gonna have some unhappy people. We're gonna have some unhappy people. Okay,
you guys are hiding from Mac, man.
Moving on to the next one here. This is just a little bit of a short one, but when do you guys actually need a tech? How far is, or when is enough, and how much are you willing to put? And guys, and actually, let's start off with that, and then I'll ask another question after that here, pertaining to that. But when is it when you've had when do you accept defeat? Schoolboy, have you come up on this situation before?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant, but I haven't, because I will spend an exorbitant amount of time trying to figure something out. I guess it's kind of my way of kind of predetermining how to sort out the issue. It's not that I don't like going to other people per se. It's just I like understanding things myself, and I will put a stupid amount of time into something to figure something out. And case in point, I had two Aries Tavors before, and oh god, how long did it take me to get it up? One of them was I purchased from a friend that was in a shop for 2.5 years. They couldn't
Oh
get
my
it to
God.
work, and I bought it from him. And I said, "Screw it, I need something to work on, just a project gun." I spent hearsay like on off 4 to 5 months, but I got it working to a point where I was happy with it, and then I built on top of that and just kept going. And I had it for years, and because of that, I built a second one, and they kind of shared the same spec in terms of what I used in terms of internals that I purchased for both of them, and then how I wanted to build them up and work with them. That was one of those projects, and I think in the Lower Mainland area, I was like one of the only people that was known for being willing to work on an Aries Tavor, which were kind of nightmare guns back in the day, still are in many ways. But yeah, I don't like really defeating myself. I think it kind of just screws me over. I never went to a tech. I think the only time I ever did, maybe perhaps, yeah, actually no, I did once when I first started airsoft and I had no idea what I was doing. I wanted to get, I think, a barrel changed and a hop up unit, and I didn't understand how to adjust motor height. This is like a long time ago too. I think back when I first started, and I remember Julian had an M60 at the time, but there's a local guy called Damage, who is a well-known tech back in the day, and I sent it to him. And then after that, when I purchased my second airsoft gun, I said, okay, I'm not going to take it to a tech anymore. I'm going to figure out how to do this myself. And I had one gun that I would use and then one that I would toy with, which is, I think, what I commented on before in our segment at the field, which is you should always have one to play with that's good to go, and then have one that you just screw with all the time. It's a great way to kind of learn. That's my 2 cents.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. Raven, how about yourself? At what point do you accept defeat, or have you accepted defeat?
Well, I've never actually gone that route because I've always like am persistent on wanting to fix my stuff by myself. If I don't know anything, then obviously I would research it up. But just like the other guys said, just reach out to other people, maybe get some input from other techs or from the airsoft community itself. But other than that, yeah, I've never really, well, probably when I was beginning like to do stuff, when I didn't know teching, that's when I reached out and asked for help. But then other than that, it's like in my head, it's like, I don't really want to pay somebody else to figure out a problem where I could figure it out. So I'm just like, okay, you know what? If it's getting too frustrated, like if I'm getting too frustrated on a certain project that I'm doing or a certain gun that I'm working on, then I just take a break. Like like usually I work on it till a certain couple of hours, and I'm like, if I can't get it in with these couple of hours, I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do this tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Well, fair point. Fair point. Definitely a good way to take, attack the situation, just because it can be mentally fatiguing.
It is, yeah. It's like there's so many things that go in your head, like, okay, what am I doing wrong? What am I doing right? How much is this part gonna cost if it breaks, or if it doesn't break,
If
then
it
what's
breaks,
going
yeah.
on? What's going on? So, and also just researching and troubleshooting and just scratching your head. And also the trial and error. But obviously, once you get better at things, the trial and error just dissipates because you have the experience to back that up.
Okay. All right. Riot, how about yourself? Have you accepted defeat, or have you fought all your battles through and through?
With the KSG, I'm probably saying I'm at like a neutral stance with it right now.
Okay, so it sounds like the battle is still ongoing. You haven't lost yet. but
No,
it
not
sounds like
yet,
the
but I
fight's
came
still
very
going.
close to.
Okay.
So I'm not like, I'm pretty new to teching still. Like I'm not been doing it for a couple of years now. And so I haven't really worked on a lot of guns. Mostly just shotguns. Like I feel like I'm a broken record saying it, but yeah, I do shotguns.
Mhm.
So I've won 2 battles of those, and the KSG is an ongoing one. But if things are looking down the dirt, yeah, I most likely will probably just call because I rather just call up a tech, probably you tech,
Okay. All right. All right.
if I need help, because I'll be like, it's better to ask for help than to sit here
Mhm.
pondering away for hours on end, not doing anything. So
Okay. Julian. When is enough enough, and have you accepted defeat?
Um, for me, usually if I open the gearbox about 6 times, that's usually
Okay.
about 6 hours, depending on the situation.
Mhm.
But I would add to Dave, as when he mentioned, he had Mark. So usually for me, like I will reach out, to the other techs in the area and then say, hey, I got this problem. Can we meet up and go through it, right? I do want to make a note too that not all the techs of Lower Mainland are here, right? Obviously, some are obviously busy, but easily, I believe, between our network of all the techs, are roughly between 10 to 20 of us here. We're always willing to help each other out. So in that sense, same for the viewers as well. We are all available. Just have to reach out to us to see depending, right? And I know some of us are more specialized in some. So like for me, I'm more just a AG, but I can do others. And I'm sure like, right, here's shotgun could be more that, right? So we all can pull each other's strengths to kind of help each other out and bounce off ideas because, when you go through a gearbox 6 times, you're going to miss steps.
Yeah.
Right. So then let's just
Mhm.
say, oh, hey, Raven, I'm doing this. You take a look at this. And Raven's like, hey, you missed a step. Like, oh, that's why I'm making that mistake, right? So getting fresh set of eyes
Mhm.
on
Yeah, that's
doing it
true.
is always helps each other out because you get frustrated and the next thing you know, you're going to throw the gun against the wall because you just can't get it back together. I'm sure we've all been there at
Yep.
one point,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And then
just
like
put it in a
Julian,
bag and into the closet.
because yeah, and take a break. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
We all need to take a break because it's not the physical part that makes it challenging for teching. I think it's the mental part because, like River said, you're just thinking and double and triple checking what did I do right and what did I do wrong. And then unfortunately, when you spend so much time working, you end up making teching more mistakes, right? So having that break and having your colleagues to bounce off ideas helps a lot. So really, in the end, I wouldn't say it's a true defeat. I think it's because we're a strong community together, we help each other and support each other. We'll always make it happen. So I guess in the case for Riot, all those techs will probably at some point will be helping Riot to try to figure out what's going on with KSG, right? Because I'm sure somewhere along this has come across it. All of us have different various of experience and working on different types. Some more guns, some less guns, right? So like, bouncing off each other is the best resource we have to help each other and all the guys that need help with the guns too, right? So
That's very true. Definitely having another set of eyes, just double checking and stuff like that, over your work to, so you don't miss anything. I find, for myself, when it came to airsoft, when I first learned about it, when you look at it zoomed out, it's very, very simple, right? And as long as you stay zoomed out, you'll have an easy time teching on airsoft. It's when you start zooming in, and like you said, Julian, when you start thinking and overthinking, that's when things get complicated. That's when you start missing things because essentially, when you zoom out, it's a very simple system to understand. So with that, I myself, I will not say that I have accepted defeat. Those guns are in a bag in the closet, and they will be dealt with at an opportune time. So I have not lost the battle with those ones. I'll just get to it at another time. Uh, with that said, it. I want to get just a general feel with this question from you guys, so you guys can speak up when you as you feel. Um, is there a golden rule when it comes to how much money has been put into a platform before you just say stop and drop it and get a new platform? Or is it like one of those passion projects where you just keep putting money into it over and over again till you just breathe life into it? what are your guys' take on that? Is there sort of a limit that you should put on something generally so that you don't waste your time? Let's start with Riot, yourself. What's your opinion on that?
Sorry, can you say the question again?
So, at what point, is there a golden rule, in your opinion? So, like, let's say a gun costs $500, right? Is
Okay.
there like do you follow like a 60% rule or something like that? Like, or do you follow where it's like, you'll keep putting money into it until you reach like what it cost you to purchase, the platform? Like, is there
Oh,
a certain point to where you just stop?
jeez, well, when it comes to upgrading it, honestly, just if I paid $500 for it, I'm like probably gonna only upgrade it like $200 worth of parts. That's probably my cap
Okay, all right.
because I've already like because I expect that after after I've sunk $200 into it, that it should be at the point where I'm satisfied with it to use.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's a fair point. David, how about yourself? Is there sort of like a golden rule that you follow on some platforms or a airsoft gun that you're working on?
It's not money based. It's based on how much dust accumulation from it sitting in the safe. So if it sits there and I don't pull it out or use it or have any sort of inclination to use it, it's usually the selling point. But I don't like having anything inoperable or broken. So if I have a broken gun, so to speak, or something doesn't work, I'll either liquidate it as quickly as possible, or I'll get it up to a working point that I'm happy with it, and then I will sell it off. Or I don't know. I've done some pretty good deals a few times where I've given people things for like dirt cheap, just if they want a project from time to time, because I don't like sitting on things. It's kind of like sitting on dry inventory in a store. You either sell it or use it or get rid of it. One of the three. Yeah.
Okay, fair. That's a very fair point. Julian, how about yourself? Do you follow any sort of golden rule when it comes to just you put your hands up and you're like enough is enough kind of thing when it comes to how much money you're putting in?
No, no. If it doesn't work, then it'll be a collector and hang on the wall.
Okay, all right.
That's pretty much it.
Well, that's fair. Okay, all right. Raven.
So if I want it to work, then I will try and get it to work as as cheap as I can, because I don't want to spend so much money on certain things. For example, if I want to get my AEG to a certain spec, and I always try to find the most reasonable path to it, because I know there are super expensive parts, but I know there are parts also that are somewhat par with those certain parts. If I could get it for a more reasonable price point, then I would just probably, if I can, throw money at it. But if I've noticed that the total cost of upgrades is up, going way beyond the total price of the stock gun itself, then I'm just like, do I really want to spend more than what the initial price of the gun was? So yeah, it's like basically same thing with cars, or like my basic rule of thumb with cars is, if I buy a car for like $5,000, $6,000, and if I have to put more than $10,000 worth of repairs into it, just to get it 100%, I'd rather just sell the car and then save up more for a better car at that point.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, that's all fair points that you guys bring up. I myself, I sort of believe in kind of like the monetary value of it, although that's just when it comes to our viewers. When I talk about just in a general sense, just because, and in that's like a 60 to like 70% rule. Because sometimes it's not always ideal to upgrade some of those really stock guns. For example, like really basic G&G CM16 Raider. It's all polymer. All the pieces are really, really loose, and for just long-term longevity aspect of it, it's not, the best. So would I be sinking a bunch of money into something like that? Probably not. I would only probably put, as much money into as upgrading the hop up and maybe changing the barrel out or something like that. I wouldn't do any kind of crazy thing with it because it could easily break if you fall on it and stuff like that. Although that could happen with a number of airsoft guns just because of how cheap some of the material is. But that's sort of like a rule that I sort of follow on that aspect, just because when your average person doesn't go into airsoft thinking like, hey, I bought this $500 gun. I'm also going to a month from now put another $500 into this to make it even better. Like most people just have this idea set that they go in, they just have to pay this amount. They don't see that that like trap door that's behind the welcome mat, sort of to say when they get into airsoft. But besides that, when it comes to a platform that I enjoy, that I really like, um, you know, um, I'll put there is no limit because I want that thing to work. Similar to kind of like what you were saying, Julian. Although as much as I wouldn't want to have it as like a wall hanger, I would try to do sort of as much as I can to get it to function, just because I really enjoy that specific platform. Especially if it's a collector's piece sort of thing, just because it's like extra flex points. But obviously, if you can't get parts for it and whatnot, then it is what it is. Um,
So with a slogan ad to tag to our viewers,
mhm.
if it ain't broken, don't upgrade it.
100%. Yep, I agree with that. Just like what Papa Poi was saying earlier, right? Keep it stock. Don't
Stock.
don't fix something unless it's broken,
That's
because
TM.
what's the
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
If you can play with it, and as Julian has in his shop, as well as I have in our shop as well, if you're not hitting the guy, take a couple steps forward. You're just you're standing too far away.
I
That's too
guess
nice.
I'll.
That's that's too nice, tag. I think we said something else.
Yeah. I did tone it down there a little bit.
Well, I guess
Well,
I'll add the GBB perspective into the repairs and stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, so like for me, I typically buy a broken Wii because I know parts just needs to be changed and it just needs some TLC. But
Mhm.
for me, it's kind of a reverse sort of like I'll buy used and then I'll repair it because I know what parts to replace it with.
Right.
Right, because and it's stock, right? So if I just buy the stock parts, most of the time, if it's not too major, if it's just bolt carrier or the trigger assembly or nozzle, I already have the mags for it, so it's not a big issue. It's just replacing the parts that wear out because people go ahead and they'll go out, rip through it, and then it doesn't work anymore, and then they have no idea what to repair it with.
Mhm.
And then I'll go, okay, I'll buy it off you for like, this doesn't work. I'll buy it at the lowest price, and if they do, then I'll buy it. The lowest gun I bought is probably like $130, and then I just got $130 worth of parts for it, and then now I have a working $600 gun.
Okay, well that's a good point.
Yeah,
That's a
because
very good point.
yeah, it's just for me. When do I give up?
Mhm.
Or price point is when it costs more than what I purchased it for.
Okay.
Because
So
for GBBs, it's all parts are just they just wear out unless it's a crack like receiver or anything like that is needed for the guns operation. Then yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna bother. Yeah,
so with Poi, then I'll add that to be like Poi for viewers, you should own the same platform.
yeah,
Then you will
Yeah.
drive down your repair costs.
Yeah.
Because then
much.
you can swap parts. You can swap your parts in and over out
yeah.
to make it work.
Exactly. Mac, how about yourself? At what point in time are you gonna say enough is enough?
Oh.
How much money are you willing to sink into a platform that you've purchased before you're just like, no, it's done. I will not upgrade this any further.
Are we talking hypothetical, or are we supposed to like talk? Like, are you trying to make me relive past traumas? What's going on here?
That's all up to you.
Okay.
If you want to tell everyone how much money you spend ridiculously on your platform, that's up to you.
No, they don't need to know the exact number. But Yeah, I mean, there's a breaking point and such where you definitely don't want to be replacing it too many times. I mean, I definitely understand and believe in that what Julian mentioned, and everyone, like believes this to a degree, right? Run it stock till it's broken. Like, there is no sense in like doing anything to it until you have a problem. And once the problem arises from there, you can deal and rectify it the way you want. But like, it's when you have all those crazy upgrades and doing all sorts of different things that you're gonna get those headaches and everything like that. So for me, I'm so simple that as long as the gun's working and everything, like I'm okay. So, you know, I just give it to you anyway, so like that's my answer, Tack.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, perfect. Moving on, guys. My next question here is, what makes someone a tech? Um, is it their exceptional general knowledge of a product? Is it their exceptional knowledge of a single product? Or is it their ability to fix a problem that's right in front of them? Or is it some sort of certification process that we have? And then lastly, could it be just reputation alone? With that said, Julian, what in your eyes makes someone a tech?
Why do you have so many questions?
Uh,
You ask like 5 questions for one
it's
question, right?
Yeah,
It's like who
one vote.
sent you? Who sent you?
Where's the
This is an
microphone?
interview.
What makes someone a tech?
Hard questions.
That's a loaded answer.
What's
Question.
this?
Really.
Yeah, that's a
It
loaded
is
question.
it is a
How do you
That
load.
is a loaded question.
what makes someone tech? I think for all of us, for techs particularly, and like to say be same for Raven and Dave, you guys can mention. I think it's patience. That's a big key here, right? And being and personality, right, comes I think part of it. If you have a person that's basically saying this and this and this and boasting about the gun and that's it, more than likely the person is not going to be someone you will like to work in a gun because you just be whatever, right? Versus, like I know Raven. I know Raven's a really humble guy. I can go up to him and, hey, I got this issue. Oh yeah, how about this? We could do this or that kind of thing. So I think when you meet and talk to these guys, I think that alone already can say that's like it's not there. I don't want to say there's one better than the other. We all have strengths and weaknesses, and we all have expertise, right? And all of us at different variations. So I'm 22 years, so obviously I've seen more than probably what Raven has seen, for example.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't mean I'm better than him. No, we're still the same. We're both equivalent. It's just that I just seen some stuff, and he might have seen some newer stuff I've seen. For example, I'm not expert in HPA. He might be, so I'll go to Raven. Hey, I got this HP gun. What do you think? Yada yada yada. Right. Sorry, I'm gonna retreat your questions again because it's a loaded question.
Well, 100%. I guess another thing to add to that is, would it make it easier if there was a certification process? Like because then everyone would sort of have a baseline sort of knowledge base that everyone could kind of refer to, or do you think something like that could exist at all when it comes to airsoft?
No, my person, I think, like I said, I refer back to RC cars. We don't have certification of RC cars. Everyone can work on a car. So same with us, just some of us have a little bit more passionate about working on guns. So therefore, that's why we end up taking that. Like truthfully, I would say, for me, if I don't have to work on someone's gun, I won't. I'll just work on mine. But I also want to help people too, right? That's the kind of person I am. So therefore, I'll try to pass on the knowledge and show that and show someone else, and they can still work on that kind of stuff, right? I'm sure, Raven and Dave, they decide because they're, they really want to dive for it and they learn. But I've seen these guys too. They've also share that knowledge with other people too. They don't just say, it's my world, I'm only gonna work on my gun. No, they also, they do services, but that they don't do it for the money. They do it to help other people too, right? But at the same time, we also need to be fairly compensated. If you expect us to work on a gun for $10 an hour, that's not going to happen because we've accumulated all this experience knowledge, and all we're doing at the end of the day is trying to help you as the viewers to have a better airsoft experience at the end of the day. We're not here to make money. It's just that, for me personally, if I work on a gun, I spend 10 hours and if I figure it out, bouncing to the guys and what, like Dave mentioned, I don't feel comfortable charging 10 hours. I'll just end up charging, 4 because it's not, I don't feel it's fair either. Because sometimes it could be, we go this motion, we end up fixing, and you know what? We just come at a 10 hour like, man, it was just this simple thing.
That simple
Could have
thing.
fixed the thing. It's like, what? And we don't feel it's fair to charge the customer or to charge the person, because
I totally
it's a
agree.
sport, and it's a sport at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We're always in together as a community to play together, to have fun together, right? And support each other as much as we can,
Mhm.
right? But like I said, we charge some, but we also can't charge cheap. And at the same time, again, to our viewers, I've seen it, and I've seen Tech getting, sometimes angry. So if he's angry, don't come to him. Where some guys at the end, like, hey, here's my gun, fix it. I need it back to use for the next game in half an hour. Be a little realistic with us too, because
Yeah.
we are trying our best. We are
Be
patient.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah, we are trying our best to help you. Remember that we're not doing this to make money, because if we did, we all start up mobile shops and don't even bother coming to this table, because if money is the focus, then that's what we'll be doing. But no, we're here for the community. We're here to help the community, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we ask in that respects for the guys. When you guys come to us, try to help us out too as well, as much as you can. Because at the end of the day, we're just here to help you guys too. So
Yeah, well, definitely, that's a great answer to that. I definitely agree to that sort of mentality of following that whole fisherman mentality, wanting to just help the community to better understand everything and whatnot. And we're just here to help share our knowledge and get everyone to improve. David, what in your opinion makes someone a tech?
Hmm. I I think for me, there's like two simple factors. It's the will it's the desire to solve a problem, whether it be simple or complex, and the approach to it. Or maybe there's three actually, pardon me. The approach part is kind of like what Julian said earlier. It has to do more with patience and the ability to not so much as just say, oh, I know exactly what it is. It's super easy. It'll take me 5 minutes. No, it's more about the process of diagnosing it, and then taking the time. And then the last one is usually the desire to kind of help the other person too. You see this with good techs versus I don't want to throw shade out there, but fuck it, I'm going to.
Whoa, here we go.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
reputation's
versus
I want to hear some
what you
names.
versus your ego-driven techs, which is a fucking huge thing now in airsoft. Pardon my language, but you see that with guys who do these crazy ass builds all the time, and they shit talk everything else. They don't tell you how much money goes in, how much of a pain in the ass it is to keep it operating, and then it becomes more of a yo dog, I can build better shit than you. And then you watch these matches of guys basically measuring their dongs back and forth over essentially who can build a better gun. It's like, really? It's a toy. And you should care more about what you're giving to somebody. And it should be more about the longevity of it than it should be about just performance and like how far you can push the envelope. I get that. You know what? That's their fucking spiel. It's their thing. Go ahead, do it. But for God's sake, like, when you pay exorbitant amounts of money for a dude to build a DSG for you, and the gun blows up in 2 weeks, and then then you take it back to the person. They go, "Oh no, it's your fault." Give me a break. Like, you see a lot of that, and then you have companies that are built on that too, of that ego sort of like ego tech mentality, which exists in airsoft. It's annoying as shit. And yeah, some of these dudes are smart as hell. Like, I'll give them that. They know what they're talking about. They have the knowledge. But instead of being humble about it and more interested in the idea of assisting people, they're more about driving a profit and then basically being edgy at the same time. And some of you guys know exactly who I'm talking about from some guys back east. And then there's guys in the States too that do the same shit too. And I mean, one of the ones that really hurts my head is when guys reinvent the wheel and they create a product and put it out there and it's expensive as balls for no freaking reason. And then you look at it and you're like, okay, cool. You've created something that's, quote, indestructible, but now you've transferred stresses elsewhere in the gun and you're breaking other parts. That's not teching. That's kind of just, I don't even know what to call it at that point, basically, but that's not assisting. It's more or less being a hindrance at the same time too. And for me, it's always been a humble project, like passion, and I give a shit about what I do when I put my time into it, but I hate it when guys go out there with the ego trip, like I'm going to build the best thing ever. And they give somebody something that's really expensive and it fucking destroys itself. And then next thing you know, it pisses everyone else off that has to actually fix it. And they're like, God damn it, stop doing this. Like, yeah, it's an eye roller. That's
Okay.
just my 2 cents. It'd be cool.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to have a certification, but airsoft it's nuanced. It's a hobby in its essence more than it is a sport. So there's no status quo, so to speak, to follow, which is really confusing at times.
Okay. Well, that's totally understandable. Okay, Raven. In your opinion, what makes someone a tech?
Well, like what everybody else was going off on, someone who's humble and who likes to help other people out, because they too started from just being a beginner, and they too knew the struggles of what having a bad gun is like and how bad it'll ruin your day. Because let's say if you just have a stock gun or semi-upgraded gun and you did it yourself and you go and play, because I personally have had this experience where I would go and play and then all of a sudden something's not shooting properly, like I would have built my hop up or my compression system wrong, and then my BBs would just be flying down and then I would have no idea. Then I would have a pretty bad day, or like some new player would have a pretty bad day. I feel like a good tech is a person who cares about the community. And like what everybody else was saying, also going on that, yeah, we don't really do this for the money, because otherwise we would be charging so much like more, because it's it's we're here to help you out so you would have a good time in the sport than just scratching your head out in the waiting area and be like, oh great, now I have to break apart my M4, have to see what's going on. And it's like you're taking the time off instead of going to play. But yeah, that's what I think a good tech is. Like what David says, yeah, there are bad, like egoistic techs out there in the community. I've seen like they go off at people and all that stuff, and I've seen that they charge like crazy prices also, what I've heard and what I read. But yeah, it's like that's just portraying a bad image for techs, because then people are like, oh darn it, like I don't want to go to a tech now, because then it's gonna cost me like an arm and a leg just to go get my gun fixed that I want. I want it to work. Yeah, just to play. Like if a person just wants to go and play, then it sucks for them that they have that mentality going into it, thinking that, oh, I'm gonna have to pay hundreds of dollars now just to get my gun working. Well, like for example, if somebody comes up to me and they just have like, they're like, oh hey man, by the way, my gun's not shooting, and I'm just like, oh okay, here, let me listen to it, and then I would try and help them out, give them knowledge and then give them tips on how to diagnose it. And if something's wrong, I'd be like, okay, let me take a look at it. And then if I get it fixing, then I would give them tips and tricks on how to prevent that certain problem from happening. But yeah, that's pretty much what I think a good tech is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and those are all great points that you guys are bringing up. Riot, how about yourself? In your opinion, what makes someone a tech?
Man, like everyone's kind of just giving some really good like reasons and stuff. So I'm kind of like last in the post here. I don't really think I have much more to add except the fact that you're just, yeah, what makes someone a tech? Someone who's creative and is okay with making a little bit of mistakes just to solve a problem, I guess, like a problem solver in a way.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a great point too. Just being a general problem solver is definitely a main key with that. I've being a little stubborn is also, I think, a really good mix for a
Persistence.
tech. Yeah, just
Yeah.
yeah, all in all, and being humble, as you guys have mentioned, is very, very important, and keeping the customers well-being in mind, I think, is always an important factor, because as Raven mentioned, right, you want to be able to play, right? The main factor for a lot of these guys who come out to play airsoft isn't to you know beam someone from right across the field. Half the time it's just that they want to be able to have fun on the weekend and play with whoever they're going out with. And you know for some people that idea might be beaming someone from across the map, and for the rest of us it's just to be able to go out there, run around for 30 minutes with our friends and tag each other out.
Can I add
Yeah,
an
I was actually
outside
gonna. Yeah,
perspective to it because I'm not a tech.
yeah, exactly. I was gonna
And
ask you, Poi. What do you
yeah,
think?
so for me, time is money basically.
Mhm.
If my gun breaks, I would go to a reputable tech. Now the problem is, someone, think about it like me. I don't tech. I don't know what teching is. I don't know how to open my gearbox and stuff like that. Right? You guys have the
Mm.
privilege or the knowledge of that. For me, I'll just go through the basics. Basics. If I have to open a gearbox, then we had those people in your field report where they just go to a tech right away. The
Yeah.
problem is for me is that yes, there are some arrogant ones that are out there, but they're also running a business. And where would I go to in terms of if I don't know anybody? I would just go straight to the store right away, right? Problem is how reputable are they? Do they know their stuff? That's why you were talking about the certifications, right? Because
Mhm.
me coming from the tech world, and as well as like having to go to a mechanic to deal with things, right? There's techs that specialize in different things,
Mhm.
and my expectation is when I'm going to a business, right, with a business license and everything, I would expect them to know and resolve my issue, right away. And their techs have sort of specializations or some sort of certifications to carry their reputation, right? Because in the tech world you need certifications to get through different technology sets or different areas or just knowledge of different things, and that's why they
Mhm.
hire them for that, right?
Mhm.
So for me, looking at these different stores, I'm going, okay, well, I could get their tech services, but is it gonna get fixed? What's my risk here? I'm spending money for me not having to deal with it and
Right.
them having to deal with it.
Mhm.
That's why, Julian, you're talking about that one guy is like, hey, here's my gun, can it be ready in 2 hours, right? Their expectations are wild. Yes, I get it. But also when
Too
you get
damn high.
when yeah, the rent's too damn high. Um, when the expectation is like for myself is like, hey, can you get this fixed? Here's X amount of money, right? Or send me the bill afterwards, right? It's like it's hard to grasp what that level of tech is, right? When there is no certification or there is no sort of reputational guide, right? You know how doctors have their licenses and stuff, like, or rate my doctor, like something like that. Why don't
Mhm.
is there like a rate my tech sort of deal? Because
Oh
if
man, I'm not gonna lie, that would turn into a hot troll
no,
mess.
I,
I'll
I
tell
get
It
you.
I,
would.
That
I
would.
get you, I
That
get
would.
you. But as far as like me is concerned, right? If I'm going in there, don't know anything about teching, I have to go to someone, right? What is
Mhm.
the
Yep.
backing that I have, or the background that I'm having to read through? Who's good and
Like, what's your
stuff, right?
insurance, right?
Yeah. So that's what I was looking at. Is like if I'm throwing money at this because I want it fixed and I'm not dealing with it,
Mhm.
right? What is my insurance? What is the guarantee, right? That I'm gonna get it like fixed or in good condition, or even if it's an upgrade, right? What is you guys are talking about, like, if I send it to this tech, arrogant, whatever, but he upgrades it to the balls, right? And then it breaks afterwards, like, well, what? Then then I'm in the shitter basically for having a broken gun at that point, right? There has to be like a safety net or some sort just for consumers to go in there and upgrade.
Warranty.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was gonna
Yeah,
say that
Yeah.
warranty.
warranty
Yeah.
because
there
Warranty
you
The
is
go.
about
W
it.
word.
always, as I said before, warranty.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
and that's very true, because there's nothing worse than taking something to what you would expect to be a reputable person, and you're hoping to get a good product, out of it, and then only to have it crap out the next weekend, and then you try to go take it back, and they tell you that it's your fault, right? And maybe it was your fault, or it wasn't even your fault of your own, but there's nothing worse than sort of that kind of feeling. And yeah, I've seen it happen. It happens a lot just because um they're like, for example, right? Trigger is a certified, airsoft store, right? That's where you would go to, for your airsoft stuff and whatnot. But like there are sometimes other shops out there who I would not consider or aren't considered like um 100% airsoft orientated, right? And sometimes they may not have the best people working there, or worst case scenario, they only have one real tech that's working there, and he's not there 100% of the time, right? And you get, my dad always told me, don't buy a car that was built on a Monday and don't buy a car that was built on a Friday, because those aren't going to be good choices for you. So the same thing could be said for an airsoft gun when it's getting worked on.
Fair enough.
So what I'm gonna add to that then, as Jose Poi is the host for this show, tip to our viewers, and like Raven and Dave, the humble side of it. When you can, come talk to us, because that's, in that sense, I guess that would be your homework. Like, I know, I guess, when new people are coming into the market, you have no idea here, and the first thing you're gonna think is a business to work on your gun. We encourage you because, again, we are players at the end of the day first, right?
Yep.
Everything else, okay. So then come talk to us. Come see Poi, come see Matt, come see Tech. They are in the Panther community every weekend, and they'll be more than happy to at least give you a direction of who to go see and who might good. Because we are a close knit community, and we all support each other, right? And we always want to lean on each other, help each other out as much as we can. So again, tip for our viewers: reach out to Poi. Sure, he'll be more than happy to kind of show you where to go, who to talk to, right? If you have concerns in terms of basically, after I spend this money to fix this gun, what are my reassurances that this is actually going to work? The other part, obviously, as Poi mentioned, Trigger, for example, would do warranty. So they are a store. That is their business. So obviously, if you buy the gun that doesn't work, they either fix it or they replace it. So we've seen that before, and that's a good store. That's a good community backing store too. And like Tack mentioned, not all stores in Lower Mainland do that, and not all stores in Lower Mainland are airsoft only. They're like a mix between carrying different lines of products. So in that sense, like I said, talk to Poi with a Trigger. I would say, in terms of getting your support and insurance, right? And again, if you're not sure, at the end of the day, come again. We're more than happy to talk to you, because with us, because to give a player first, we're technically everything about your 4-hour support. We only ask again, have a realistic expectation about time too. Can't if you give us the gun and expect it done half an hour, we can't do that. There needs to be respect of our time too, to try to help you, because at the end we do this to help you guys at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for that, Julian. And with that, we are getting close to the end of our segment here, and I would just like to sort of and end off here with our last two questions. But with the first one here, I just want to get some stories from you guys. So, do we have any sort of teching stories that you guys would like to share or would like to talk about when it comes to best and worst teching moments, or things that you guys have learned from teching? Let's see here. Riot, we'll start off with you.
Oh God, to not hold the heat gun too close to the plastic for too long. I kind of melted. I kind of melted the part of the stock. My first
Okay,
time.
that's a learning experience for sure.
That was when I took apart the KSG, it did have a couple of springs in it that might have done the ejector seat moment. So yeah, I kind of lost a couple of the that was the main thing about my KSG, was that I took it apart and I'm like, oh, just like the video, and then suddenly I hear something go ping, and I'm like, oh no.
That sounds
And
like
my
a pretty
dad
bad
was in
teching
like the
moment.
kitchen with me. He's like, what was that? And I'm like, probably a spring, like
Ah.
all defeated.
Mhm.
And I had to go and look for it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Raven, how about yourself? Do you have any sort of best or worst teching moments that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Oh.
Oh, Mike.
Oh, sorry.
Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay. Sorry. Worst would be when I was working on a conversion from AEG to HPA. and I was taking apart this VFC Avalon.
Mhm.
So there's this, I don't know who worked on it or he worked on it, but it was just like compromised of all. It was just overall like really badly put together. It was upgraded. Upgraded. Let me quote that. Man, so the guy was trying to, you know how you sometimes you put a washer on the, what is it again, cylinder head to adjust
Oh, he was
angle of
doing,
engagement. Yeah,
yeah, AOE correction.
yeah,
Oh.
AOE correction. And the thing was like totally chewed up. The washer was chewed up, and the way it was cut like a dome. So and it was like completely chewed up and everything. And then I don't know. And there's so much silicone lube inside the gearbox. I was like, is this a stock SEMA I'm opening up or a VFC? I was like, dude, that was like one of the worst ones I've done. It was a pretty bad cleanup job also, but I got it to work. My best, who, my best would be, I think when I built my HPA, then I was like, yes, I've got something that's pretty good.
Hmm.
But then the other thing was I built an AG that was pretty much, I got it on par with my HPA. So I'm like, I built this way cheaper, but it shoots almost the same now.
Oh,
So
that's a struggle for sure.
yeah, that's I was like, I spent this much more on an HPA. Well, I could have built something that shoots almost the same. But yeah, that's those are the greatest and worst parts.
Okay.
Mine, yeah.
Let's see here. Julian, how about yourself? What are your best and worst teching moments?
On the worst moments, I'll put two. One is soldering jobs from previous.
Ah.
I'm sure everyone has a story of coming across a soldering job and you having to spend or desolder at least probably an inch or more of solder, and then redo that. My teammate's gun. I found tiny rocks in his gearbox. Don't know how I got there. That's probably the worst.
I can understand gas, but AEG in an enclosed.
Yeah, AEG. Yes,
That's
you know
hard.
him very well. You know him very well. And you and I look at him. How did you get tiny rocks in your gearbox? It just happens. My best moments is probably every time I can close a gearbox on the first time. Because I'm sure everyone who shares this, you try to close a V2, you miss the first time, and you end up spending the next half an hour trying to close the gearbox.
Isn't it suspicious when you close it the first time? And you're like, it must be missing something.
Yeah.
No, it's perfect. It's
No, no.
perfect. That's usually
Yeah.
every time that's the best moment.
Yeah, if you
So.
can do it the first time, that's when you know everything was good. It's the second or third time you question it. Okay. David, how about yourself? Best and worst teching moment. I'm sure you have a couple.
I'll start out with the best, and then we'll go to the worst.
Okay.
I have two that are particularly good. Back when I used to work at Trigger, and this is a big thank you to Ken at the same time. He had one of the manufacturers for one of the more reputable brands. The CEO and his CFO come over and visit at the time, and the CEO sat down and spent 2.5 hours teaching me how to tech, or not, pardon me, not tech, teaching me how to shim correctly. It was ridiculous. I learned a lot more than I ever did on YouTube, and I've stuck to some of the principles he taught me to this day. And it's dumb how well it works. And dude was a whiz. And then the other one for me, I guess, is just my favorite is when I spin the gears in a gearbox after shimming, and there's almost no noise. It's just the noise from the gears, just basically interacting with each other, but there's no grinding, no binding. I love that sound. I love it so much. So I spend hours doing that. But when it comes to my worst moments, I've had a few. I think the top of the list though for me is somebody made a DIY quick change spring.
Oh,
Ooh, I've seen those on
Yeah.
Reddit.
It completely blew my mind. I didn't even know that was possible. And then the other one for me, which always gets me and pisses me right off, is when people start gluing shit in gearboxes. I hate finding glue. There's nothing worse than super glue, or I think the worst for me in one case was it red Loctite on bearings for the gearbox shell and in the piston, and there was enough of it to basically sink the whole thing. And yeah, the cleanup was a pain in the ass. It was brutal. Yeah, I'm not a fan of glue, so
Okay, all
That's just
right.
me.
That's fair. Okay. Let's see here. I think for myself, when it comes down to it, is my best experience with teching is when I can put something together and I can see the person out every weekend. If I see them out, it feels like a success story sort of thing, you know, like those reality TV shows, and to just see them coming out over and over again, gives you sort of a really good feeling. Um, with that said, some of the worst moments that I've had, and I've had unfortunately quite a few, actually had been one where someone was complaining about a smell coming out of their airsoft gun. And so, you know, the first thing that comes to my mind is that, oh, you know, your battery kind of blew up or something like that. Take a look, their battery was all fine. I ended up having to take apart their entire gun, but when I got to the motor, that's when I saw that whatever insulation was on the wire burned all off, and that's where the smell had come from. They had used, I think it was 20 gauge or 22 gauge wire or something like that to feed to the motor. And yeah, so things caught on fire essentially,
Oh.
and that was really messy to clean up. And luckily, you know, even though it was a worst moment, we were able to save the MOSFET that they were using, but I really did not enjoy having to clean that. It was really smelly, and I hope I never see something like that again, but I'll probably see something like that again anyway. um, okay, moving on, guys. We're gonna get down to the last little segment here, and then we're just gonna do a little question answering just from some of our viewers from our Discord. But before that, let's just talk about the future of teching. What do you guys think the future of teching holds? Do you guys think, you know, what are the implications of teching when it comes to laws? Because as you guys were saying previously, and as Boy was mentioning, right? You know, you expect when you go to a store to be, you know, certified, you know, quote unquote. I know that Mac can kind of joke at that sort of term because it's similar to when it comes to construction. You know, that person's certified to do that. Well, it's only deemed because of the business deeming it so. And when it comes to you know, our expensive toys, you know, it can be a touchy subject, right? For example, you know, there are some guns out there like the DAS rifle. If I remember off the top of my head, I believe that's $1,700 Canadian. I might be mistaken. It might be
It's
a little
more.
less.
It's more.
More,
Oh, it's
a
more.
lot.
Okay.
2,700.
Okay, so there you guys go. So that's just the getting your foot in the door price for something like that, right? And so let's say something like that broke, right? I'll be honest with you guys right now. If someone tried to bring a gun like that to me, I'm saying no. Sorry. Yeah, purely because of the fact that how much the gun is. And also I don't want to know how to fix something like that. That sounds expensive and a problem. But you know, with that said, right, like would licensing requirement, you know, do you think licensing requirements are going to be a thing, right? Do you think certifications for teching are going to be something that might get mandated? Because as we know, the state of airsoft right now, as it is in Canada, is sort of getting reshaped slash, you know, being attacked kind of. And so there are going to be steps that are going to be taken, hopefully, to help solidify our position. So do you guys think that licensing or certification process is gonna be part of that process. That's the future of airsoft. David, what are your thoughts on that?
Mm, well, first, I want an honorary degree in mechanical engineering to start off with that. I don't really know about the ramification of licensing techs for airsoft. You need a gold standard to kind of go off of, or essentially having
You need
something
an
that would,
ISO standard for that. When
yeah,
a business comes in, puts money in it, you need that
precisely.
standardization.
That's kind of hard to do when all the businesses are small and there's not really like a large uh, entity or corporation to kind of create that, let alone you need an
Regulated. Yeah.
yeah, you need an education system that is actually verifiable enough that you could teach people how to do it effectively to a point where they can actually work at a shop, so to speak, rather than DIY buddy out of his house, basically, who slaps a logo and then calls himself a tech. I know in Asia, from the people I've talked to, a lot of techs, or it's kind of like it's a hierarchy system. You'll have somebody who has a mechanical engineering degree who works with people who design the gearbox, or pardon me, design the externals of the airsoft guns. So they design the internals and then so on and so forth. And then they basically disseminate it down to people who actually put it together in a manufacturing line. So essentially, your tech would be the dude who does all of that at the very top and understands how everything works. You'd need to have the same thing over here in order to create a hierarchy or an echelons where you can start tiering people. And to me, it always comes down to the idea of, you need a degree in mechanical engineering at that point, or electronics, to be able to say, hey, I'm certified to work at this because I've studied X amount of time and I understand this, but that doesn't really exist in a hobby, so to speak, on a large scale. I can't speak. I think Julian can touch on this when he, in terms of the RC car world, but I guarantee you there isn't certified RC techs, so to speak. It's probably just either dudes at shops or dudes that actually know what they're doing, so to speak, in that essence. Or you go to a company. That's just my 2 cents. But it'd be neat to see that, it's just how would you implement it?
Okay, well, that's a very good point that you bring up. I guess I will go right to you, Julian, on that. What are your sort of thoughts on that whole idea of a certification process being implemented, or if it's possible at all?
I think due to the nature of our sport, I don't think it will come to pass. I think at most likely, based on the current bill that's currently set up right now, there's could be possible some form of regulation that could be created in terms of regulating the purchasing and the selling, import export. But in terms of teching, unless they make into law about modifications, I don't see it happening. And on top of that, I don't see building a framework or a regulation or solution for it is feasible or sustainable because there's just no money in it, right? The minute you start doing that, then means all your techs need to charge between 50, 60 to 150 bucks an hour, and that's not realistic. At the end of the day, as much as this is a sport, this is also a hobby, right? So I don't see it happening at all for any form of licensing, right? As a club, maybe if we had a club that kind of regulates a little bit more, than possibly in terms of you want to build badges. It's like, hey, XYZ ABC person has this tech experience and he's certified and he's backed by a reputation, blah blah blah. Then maybe, but as it is right now, I don't think it's needed. Just reputation and being part of the community is probably more important above everything else.
Okay, all right. Well, that's a very good point that you bring up. Raven, what's your thought on the whole implication of licensing requirements or even certification processes when it comes to the future of airsoft?
Well, what I think is it'll be hard to have a standard. I mean, like what everybody is saying, there's so many things that have to go into it, just to make sure that everybody's on even playing field and all that stuff. It's like same thing I think with the trades. Like you have to get, if you're certified for, let's say, X trade, then you're good. But then they have certain rules and regulations set up for that, like what everybody else is saying. But yeah, I really doubt that this would, like, the government would actually acknowledge that you need this type of certification or licensing to actually work on hobby, like, or toy guns, because at the end of the day these are replica toy guns, right? um,
Mhm.
but going as what the government is right now, I highly doubt that they would do such thing. They're like, hey, these guys are like gunsmiths now, where you have to have some type of certification that you took some gunsmithing course, I think, or something like that. But I highly doubt it that they would do such thing. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
But
pretty
yeah,
much, yeah.
those are again, very good points. Riot, what's your thoughts on the whole idea of having licensing or certifications in for the future of airsoft?
Oh, I mean, I guess it would kind of regulate things a bit better,
Mhm.
in the sense that you're not gonna just get some hack job who either makes your gun worse
Mhm.
or steals your money and runs away. Right?
That's yeah, no, that's a fair point for sure.
Um,
Brings you a little more of that reassurance and safety.
of course, it would have to be. It'd probably force people to, like, actually work in a proper store then, instead of just be like some lemonade stand on the side of the road kind of establishment.
Mhm.
But I feel like that's probably in a better sense, because then you can have a better workstation.
Mhm. Okay, well, no, that's fair. Poi, from as an outsider of the whole thing, or as a person who I guess I would say as a customer,
Yep.
right? What are your thoughts on that? Would
S-
you like to see something like that being implemented, or do you see it being more of a headache?
I wouldn't rely on the government to sort of put in licensing or certification requirements for these. I mean, stores can go in and get their own people certified, just like what David was using as an example of. Have the company come in, pay the company come in, teach their techs how to do things, right?
Hmm.
Look for things, have their engineers come down. And if they want to sell it better to the customers, right? Of
Hmm.
course you want to repair it for the customers as well. So have them come down and accredit, or have them be professionals at what they're looking at, instead of just blindly going in there in someone else's recommendation or YouTube video, right? You have the company to come in and teach them how to do things, right? That will
So,
create a symbiotic relationship between companies and as well as stores and as well as customers,
hmm. So
right?
with
That's an
that said,
even
then,
playing field, basically.
okay, so with that said, then would you like to see the manufacturers themselves, like, do you think that there should be sort of like a manufacturer certification? Like
Yes,
they
there. I know GNG runs their own GNG like certifications
Mhm.
when it comes to dealing with repairs, because I guess they found that if they can get people to easily repair and work on their guns, that becomes more of a reliability for the company, meaning that their guns are reliable because of the fact that a tech can come in and repair it, right?
Right.
The ease of teching, and as well as it gives them feedback from the techs that are working on it back to the company saying, hey, this isn't working, can we make it better? That's probably why their technologies are getting a little bit better in terms of like adding MOSFETs and things like that,
Hmm.
and as well as using better parts, right? You get enough people to complain, especially the techs that are working on it, that they themselves accredited and certified,
Hmm.
then they would get a better feedback loop, rather than having companies release a product and then the echo chamber of having influencers sort of promote it,
Right.
right? That's an echo chamber because you're just getting feedback from them,
Hmm.
right? And then not having to take care of it. It's like we're talking about cars, right?
Yeah.
When you get a car out there, when you get a Toyota, it's easy to repair, parts are available and just like that. People praise it, right, for being cheap, readily available, almost like a Wii of the car world or airsoft world, right? You go
Right.
out there, get
Okay.
stock parts, and then at Bob's your uncle, it works, right? And then when you
Hmm.
start adding custom parts to it, then that becomes a little bit of the like the dangers of car ownership at that point, when you're adding parts that are not supposed to be part with it.
Aftermarket
Yeah,
spoilers.
yeah,
Oh
something
my
like that.
gosh.
So I could see why certifications is not going to be good, because the company would have to spend money to bring out people to teach their techs to do it. But at the same time, doesn't that add value to the customer and as well as the store, right? Seeing that it is expensive, yes, and we only deal with like 1 or 2 stores here for airsoft, it's kind of difficult to gauge that. But with a small market like us, I guess it's, you got to balance out, like, do we spend this much to get, like our techs really good, or do we sell more guns, and there's
Yeah, it
an
all
entire
comes down to money. For sure.
it's an entire formula. But for me wanting to spend money to get my guns repaired with no hassle, right? I would like sort of like an accredited sort of system, or some sort of, like I was talking about, like rate my tech, right? We already have Airsoft Canada as rating people for buy and sell and stuff, right? Like age verification, right? Why can't we do like a accredited techs? Right.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
again, they would have to set these standards, right? How we set
Right.
the standards for 18-year-old and up to buy airsoft guns. It wasn't really a rule in Canada, but it is a rule for the community, and as well as like like iPros and all that fun jazz, right? Yeah. Why can't we have that in Airsoft Canada or some sort of site and put like, yeah, I get that the rating system would suck, because if you do one bad job, then you're gone for good, right? So something like that would help. If a tech's doing a good job and it shows, then he's gonna get accredited for he's gonna get credit for the stuff that he does, right? And then that gives the store a little bit of advantage, and as well as for that tech, it gives a little bit of a little bit of a bargain in price when it comes to saying, hey, you hire me, here's the ratings that I have online, right?
Yeah.
And you name your price there, right? But again, it's all the Wild West at this point. We're not dealing with like someone who does HVAC or electrical, or someone who does carpentry and stuff like that, who has taken a course for it. There is no standardization, or it's like an ISO 9000 for this, right? So
So it definitely
it's
sounds
a
like
hobby.
it's
It's a hobby. It's a hobby industry.
Yeah.
Like what are we gonna do, right?
Definitely sounds like it'll be challenging, if not impossible, just with the current climate and situation of things. So Mac, I know you've been very patient in the background there, but I'd like to ask you as well. What are your sort of thoughts and opinions on that?
Can we just like repeat the question?
Yeah, okay. So it's just your thoughts on licensing and certification. Like, would you
Licensing and
feel,
certification.
yeah,
Yes.
would you feel more comfortable seeing something like that being implemented? Do you see it being possible at all?
Well, okay. So I definitely like saw some like grumbling in the chat as well about people just talking about maybe like some kind of like online certifications or courses and such. And I know you guys have touched on it as well, talking about it. But like that would be cool, because I mean obviously you can learn a lot from a video tutorial, but being a video tutorial is a lot different from being a tactile learner, or like there's a lot of people that can only learn hands-on, and there's people that are much better at it that way, right? So I mean, yeah, it'd be really cool if we could see something in the future to certify it, but it's hard to kind of gauge, because like it stemmed from what Julian mentioned like a long time ago there. He's just saying like, it was easier when everything was like the same company, but now you have so many different makes and models and variations that it'll make it hard.
Okay, well, good points. With that, guys, I'd like to wrap up the podcast here with just the talking points, and I'm just gonna go through our Discord chat to go over some of the questions that some of our viewers have posed. So I would just like to bring up the first question, and this will be a question any of you guys can speak up and answer it here. How often should a gun be serviced? We have a viewer that has a gun that has not been serviced in almost 24 years. He is wondering, how often should you service your gun?
You sure it's not a wall hanger?
Probably a wall hanger, honestly.
Yeah.
I saw that comment. I was like, what? 24
I say
years?
every 50 to 100,000 rounds.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you judge it
somewhere
by
around there.
rounds. Okay, all right.
Yeah, Julian goes off rounds, I go off months. I usually like to say every 6 months, like between cycles, you should just have a good cleaning and basically go through it. It shouldn't be excessive. Yeah. It
But
all
if it's
depends on what you're
24
doing too.
years, yeah, if it's 24 years, it definitely needs a service check.
Yeah. I'm just imagining that the grease in there has now solidified and lost all lubricity at all.
Dude, it's not grease anymore. It's chalk.
So I will actually put comment to that. I actually had a gun that was 15 years old. It was a
Holy
TM.
crap.
When I opened it, the grease was still there. The only thing that was needed to be changed was the spring, because it went
Whoa.
from 350 down to 100 FPS.
Oh wow,
Other,
Wow.
other than that, the gun worked fine.
impressive.
That's
well,
TM fairy dust.
Yeah,
for you.
that's
yeah,
TM right there.
Japanese fairy dust. Okay.
Jeez.
Well, hey, that's cool for me. Because being at the airsoft field and whatnot, and it being an outdoor environment, right? Because I believe that also dictates it, right? If you're playing in an indoor environment, I believe your maintenance schedule is going to be a lot less strenuous versus places like Panther. Like for example, when we had the map Dunes, right? I would be telling people if you're playing on Dunes, right, and you're coming out like both days on the weekend, you're probably going to want to be servicing your gun every month or so, just because of how dusty it's going to get and just all the grime that's going to end up being built up in your gun. Just because, just being a player myself, and knowing how bad, your gun can get dirty from playing an environment like that, as well as, if you're going to be coming out, half the year, I would say you only need to, do it every 6 months or something like that. But if you're going to be coming out, every weekend for the entirety of the year, I suggest people to, get their gun maintained every couple months, which is roughly, similar to what Julian was saying when it comes to rounds, although some people are a little more liberal than others. So, that's why I kind of do the whole time scale of it, just because you do want to once in a while, crack it open and just see what's going on, because things can go wrong without you knowing about it.
Julian, you said it's every 100,000 rounds, right, to service?
Every 50 to 100.
Okay, then I should be servicing my machine guns every 2 weeks.
Oh,
Whoa.
don't even start me, dude. I got 2 machine guns, so don't even start me.
Now they're measuring sizes here.
I was
Oh,
gonna say
jeez.
my M249 too. It's like, hey, I don't even want to get into that. It's like, it's why it has a plastic piston, everyone. Replaceable.
Piston go
Okay,
crunch.
next question just from our viewers here. We have one viewer asking about the possibility of R-hopping an M132, the machine gun, I believe it is.
the
Gatling gun.
Gatling gun.
Yeah, it's
Gatling gun.
the micro gun. So
So
what are your guys' opinions on that? Is it possible?
I can touch on this because I've actually opened one up before.
It's Paul's.
Yeah, it's Paul's for sure. Flight. If they're independent hop ups and flat hopping each independent hop up, you can do it,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't recommend it because the amount of rounds that you'd put through it at the same time too, the inconsistencies between them might actually cause jamming issues between the barrels, which might actually cause it to gum up. The micro gun is neat. It's super cool and everything like that, but it's almost like the idea of putting a tight bore in it. You almost don't want to, just because of how many moving parts are in. You need things to kind of flow clearly. Because I've thought about it too.
Question to you, Dave. Would a modified flat hop work?
Yeah, you could flat hop it, and it'd probably be a little bit easier to flat hop it. Our hops are a little bit more intricate.
Well, yeah, because the modified, it just come as a complete set, right? And they have the flat nub
Yeah.
that goes in. So I'm just thinking, just put that in. That way, you're not having to deal with the patch. That's the simplest way to.
That's assuming too that it's a standard bucking as well, because it might be proprietary. And knowing the
Yeah.
Classic Army, it probably is.
You can get the set. You can get the modified nub and the modified sleeve.
Well, it's not so much of the issue of getting the rubbers to be able to put in. It's more of the issue of them being compatible with what Classic Army put together. Because if they use a standard bucking, which I'm going to go ahead and assume that they don't, because of the amount of abuse that it sees out of it, and the barrel is probably different as well too, because it's a purpose-built sort of airsoft gun, and those ones always have what is it? It's the nuanced nonsense that you always run into with purpose-built guns with inner barrels and buckings that are specifically made for it. It's very hard to find things that actually go into it and work with it. There's a really good example I'm trying to think of right now. I just actually watched a video on it. It'll come back to me later on, but it's one of the newer guns out there, and it uses a blowback system. It's the TM Mark 46 that just came out with the new gen recoil system. It's a great design and its function and its purpose, but the gearbox and the barrel interface system with the type of rubber that it uses, because it's a two-piece set, which is separate from one another. You have one that's connected to the barrel, which is an AEP bucking, and then you have another component which is connected to the gearbox itself and the loading system because of how you have to cock the charging handle. It makes it super unique. And the chances of having an aftermarket part that's standardized in the market out there actually fits something like that you'd run into more issues with that on its own than just to run it the way it is.
Okay, so from that, what I'm sensing is that it's going to be more time than it
More
may or
trouble
may
than
not
it's
be
worth.
worth. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Well,
definitely.
I think the biggest thing is because the patch for our hop will wear out because you're going so much for
It
auto,
would
because our
significantly.
Our hop is more suited for guys that go DMR or semi
Yeah.
shooting, because then you'd have less wear and tear on the patch, then gives you longer lasting.
Yeah, if you run
shooting
R,
range.
so I experimented with R hops on machine guns. Not a good time. I can say that.
Yeah, it wears
Avidly.
it out a lot quickly.
Yeah, way too fast.
Okay, all right.
Sounds
Let's
like
see
you guys
here.
have a lot to talk about when it comes to tech. We might need a Tech Talk 2.0 for this.
Yeah,
I'm sure we
I'm
can
gonna
go.
die. I'm gonna die right now, guys. Okay? Like, I
So,
have been
Dead.
listening in
Okay.
and out.
Too much
Playing
info.
CS:GO in the background. Won't lie to you.
Tack,
So-
let's just get a few questions here.
Yeah,
and then we'll just close it off.
I was
yeah.
gonna get the last question here, and then we're just gonna wrap up our session
Just
here. I
get two more.
appreciate your
Two more. Yeah, two more.
viewers,
No,
giving us
bruh.
feedback here.
This is
So
episode
our-
54 with the Tech Talk with Tack. This is Mac.
No.
Dying
Okay, okay.
off.
So our next question that I'd like to bring up, and this is actually a very good question in my opinion. What are the most cost-effective ways to increase your gun's performance? So I'm gonna sort of condense that a little bit because I know that's a little bit of an open-ended question in that sense. So I guess what I would sort of modify that to is what would be your first cost-effective upgrade to increase performance?
Can I pause that for a sec?
Yeah.
Can I pause that for a sec? Hoy, do you have a picture of the FAQ? You should post
The
that
one
up.
where Tack's pointing, the thumbnail.
All those points will pretty much answer the question that we got.
Yeah, I think I do. Hold on. Let me go find it here. Ah, yes. The FAQ. Here we go. That was a pretty good
Yeah.
Hey, Julian worked hard on it, okay, and it's great.
No. It was a co-venture with you and Matt. Remember that? It was three of us.
Can I actually make this into like a big sheet, like a paper for you, like a poster paper, and I'll hang it.
If you want, yeah.
Yeah. So here we go. So frequently asked question, gun doc. Pulling trigger, nothing happens. Check power. No BBs coming out. Check mag. Okay, obviously. I can't hit anything.
Cheeky.
I can't hit anything. Check hop up. Aim better. You should also put walk towards the target.
Yeah.
My gun is jammed. Check. Is that check? Check that MAT. Check mag. Hop up. Throw gun. Hit people. What? Oh, check mag. Hop up. Throw gun at people. Well, I mean, don't throw the gun at people, but sure. What do we have here? How can I get more range? BB, hop up, barrel, FPS, run closer. Obviously.
Run closer.
Let's
Fix bayonets.
Oh,
Fix
God.
bayonets.
How can I get faster trigger? Battery, motor, gear, MOSFET, more exercise. Fingers.
More exercise.
How can I get consistency? Hop up. Sleeve? Wait. How can I get more consistency? Hop up. What is this? Sleeve, nub, barrel, cylinder. Look at number 3. What's number 3 again? I can't hit anything. Check hop up. Aim better. Okay. My gun is smoking. Smells smoke. Stop the trigger. CDO. That's blocked by your arm. Sorry. Number 9. I got a question. Advice is free for the first time. Okay.
Oh my god, that's brilliant.
I have a grinding sound. Stop motors or gears. Okay. Do you offer warranty? 7 days. There you go.
There you guys go. That's general tech FAQ at the field for the Armory and ASG.
Yeah, I will
Very
actually
insightful.
reprint that for you guys and then
Mhm.
put a bigger poster if you guys don't mind because
Mhm.
Where's
yeah.
where's the segment that says buy your tech a beer?
Bye.
Oh, we
That
should add
works
that.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, coming up on our
Oh,
next
this-
podcast.
The secret rule, dude.
Yeah. So with that, guys, that brings us to a wrap for our podcast episode 55. I really appreciate our hosts Raven, Julian, and David for coming out and spending their time talking about this kind of dry topic for some people, but juicy topic for some others. Thank you to our viewers for asking questions in the chat and sticking through to the end with us here. If you guys have any more questions or any comments whatsoever, please don't forget to comment on our Facebook page as well as our YouTube page.
And if you like
we're-
this segment, make sure you let us know because I'm sure TAC will want to do a number 2 of Airsoft Tech Talk 2.
Yeah.
He's frothing at the
Absolute
mouth to do
menace.
another one.
I'm
Workshop,
sure you
Yeah.
guys
We'll
are.
host a workshop.
I think all of us look like we're about to
and-
fall asleep.
And for our viewers out there, if there's anything you'd like us to
Mhm.
improve on, feel free to drop us some feedback. We appreciate you guys again spending your time here with us, and we hope to catch you guys on our next podcast. With that, we'll see you guys out on the weekend, and have a great night.
All right, episode
Bye-bye,
55 is
guys.
now over. We'll see you guys later.
Whoa.
Goodbye.
Okay, guys.
Tech
Oh
talk
my
with
God.
Tack.